Formula One returns. Welcome to the second part of the season, and it could be a historic homecoming for the World Championship leader. Only once before in the entire history of the sport has a driver won 9 Grand Prix in a row. Over to you, Max Verstappen. We're at Zandvoort for the 13th Grand Prix of the season. The Orange Army expects at the Dutch Grand Prix. We have just 2 races to go in Formula One's European heartland, and it is a cracker of a layout. 4.2 kilometers, 2.6 miles, and 72 racing laps ahead of us today. There's not much in the way of elevation, but it's undulating, it's cambered, it's banked, it's epic around here. And we're looking forward to just the 3rd running of the race in the modern era, because before that you've got to go all the way back to Patrick Tambay up against Patrese, sending it into Tarzan corner. A tidy move for the Ferrari driver. This is Ocon versus Alonso. These two always seem to be in close proximity and getting very, very tight to contact. That always seems to be the case between those two. Schumacher versus Vettel into turns 11 and 12. And you could tell they get on because they had to be inch perfect on the exit as the Haas driver tried to force a way through. There is a possibility of rain for this Grand Prix, 70%. Our timing monitor says, for the moment, we're looking at the C3, the C2 and the C1 tyre, as they will be debating whether it's going to be a 1-stop or a 2-stop. They don't have total knowledge of the track surface because of the weekend that we've had. Let's take you through the grid then for the 13th Grand Prix of the year. And it is at the back in the pit lane, Kevin Magnussen. Welcome to Formula One, Liam Lawson, who joins AlphaTauri in place of Daniel Ricciardo. Then it's Valtteri Bottas, struggling to switch the tyres on quickly. Yuki Tsunoda had a 3-place drop for impeding Lewis Hamilton. Esteban Ocon went out in Q1 for the first time this season. Then it is Zhou Guanyu in 15th, ahead of Hülkenberg in 14th place. The big shock of Q2 was Lewis Hamilton looking to make amends and fight through to the points. It's Stroll and Gasly next up on the row ahead of Hamilton. And then for the first time since 1993, Logan Sargent puts the American flag in the top 10 of qualifying. Then it is Charles Leclerc who found the wall. Then we have Oscar Piastri next to Sergio Perez. Carlos Sainz was surprised to be able to get his Ferrari to 6th place. Fernando Alonso is back into the top 5. Equaling his personal best in qualifying is Alexander Albon. A late lap put George Russell 3rd. Lando Norris is on the front row next to Max Verstappen. 2nd front row of the season for Lando Norris. And an 8th pole position of the campaign for Max Verstappen, who chases home victory once again. That is Liam Lawson, who is finding himself on a Formula One grid. That was the dream for him when he started go-karting in New Zealand all those years ago. The 21-year-old a few minutes away from making his debut in a Grand Prix format. So we have Alex Albon hoping to continue his heroics, and it is going to be a big, big moment for everyone at the start, because this circuit is oh so difficult to overtake on. We'll welcome you up to the commentary box where we are standing by. It's great to have your company. We are back and up and running once again. I'm Alex Jacques, delighted to be joined by 2 experts in their field. We welcome 13-time Grand Prix winner David Coulthard and Jolyon Palmer back to the broadcast. Gentlemen, what are we expecting for the Dutch Grand Prix?
I'm expecting nothing less than a cracker today. I just feel it. The crowd's up, the weather's pretty mixed.
A little bit of rain about 5 minutes away. We're not totally sure how hard it is, but there'll definitely be some at the start of the race.
You love to hear it. That's
great.
why.
That's great. And I've just come up from the grid to join you here in the box, and there was a few drops of rain. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And then suddenly, sun burst through the cloud. It is so confusing. And basically, I spoke with Christian Horner out there and said that probably one of the most important assets is a few guys they have standing on a beach a bit further up the coastline here, because they'll feel the weather first.
Well, with that threat of rain coming very early on, we send the cars out onto the formation lap, and we are up and running then. Just looking for who's on what tyre, and we've got Lewis Hamilton has gone for the medium tyre, so maybe he's thinking towards a 1-stop strategy. Everyone else on the field is on the soft tyres as Verstappen takes the field around at the front of the Dutch Grand Prix once again.
The strategy is quite an unknown for this weekend as well. I mean, there's not been a huge amount of running. Yesterday was very, very mixed conditions. We had a little bit of clean running on Friday, but there was still red flag intervals amongst the practice sessions. So everyone, all the strategists are going to be sort of working it out on the fly, whether it's a one-stop or a two-stop, and they're obviously going to be looking at the skies because a switch to intermediates blows the whole thing wide open.
Yeah, so everyone going for the grippiest tyre, knowing that if it does hit, it's going to hit inside 20 minutes. I believe we're getting rain on the commentary box window. I'm looking at the grandstands in front of us. The ponchos are going on, some umbrellas are going up, and the 305,000 that line this circuit, all desperate for Max Verstappen's moment of history, are changing their attire because here comes the rain seconds before the start.
Well, here's a scenario just while they make their way. If it feels like it's going to be heavy, some people may choose to go straight to the pit lane. If they've got uncertainty, those who go to the grid, if they then have to come in, we've got the tightest pit lane with the smallest gap. So forget your double stacking.
Oh, it is really in the balance. It has been a weekend where instincts and ability have counted for so much. Verstappen takes the cars to the line. A hat-trick of Dutch Grand Prix pole positions for him. We go driver's eye view in the middle of the pack. This is Logan Sargent in the top 10 of a Grand Prix start for the first time.
I don't think there's enough rain for anyone to go bold enough to come into the pits here, but it is going to play on your mind, isn't it? Down to turn one, rain on the visor, we can see it with Max Verstappen ahead. Piastri's been saying the same from 8th in the other McLaren. Where do you brake for the first corner? And if there's no grip there, it could be chaos.
Well, we have one car in the pit lane who will get the green light when they've all disappeared by, but this has been a tricky weekend for the Formula One field. The rain is hitting our commentary box window even harder. One car in the pit lane, a new driver at the back of the field in Liam Lawson. Lando Norris in the orange McLaren next to Max Verstappen, who is on pole position once again. 72 laps ahead, green flag at the back. Here come the lights for the Dutch Grand Prix. And we go racing in Zandvoort with a good reaction time for both of the drivers on the front row. It's Lando Norris thinking about George Russell. Verstappen holds the lead. Will they all slow it down with the rain falling? Verstappen, then Norris. It's close between the two friends of Alex Albon and George Russell, but Russell hangs on to third position. The two Spaniards of Alonso and Sainz were close, but they make it through. That's opportunistic stuff to the inside. What a great move from Fernando Alonso as the rain comes down. It's all about the feel. It's all about the grip. Alonso is up to third position, using all of that mastery as the rain begins to fall. Verstappen, then Norris, then Alonso.
Brilliant stuff from Alonso then. He's the big winner there, plus 2 places, and Sainz is going past Albon.
Can he make it stick? That would be audacious, and it is a super move for Sainz on the opening lap.
Coming back, Albon back down the inside. I am amazed we've not seen any contact on this opening lap. They've been side by side, sometimes 3 abreast.
And that is Sainz trying to hang on now with Perez. And look, they're weaving, trying to generate tyre temperature. And this is so tough for the drivers that they come in. It's hammering down. It's hammering down on the main straight. It is all about keeping your tyres warm and on the racetrack at this stage. This is nearly impossible.
They have to go to the pits. They will lose so much time. They will lose so much time on these slick tyres. Who doesn't go in?
Now you've got to pit now. It is chucking it down. You can see them all sliding around. The tyres aren't even filling up the temperature. The Williams of Albon, they're sideways. Is anyone going to pit? Are they going to stay out and brave it?
The spray is being lifted by the Formula One cars onto lap 2. Verstappen, Norris and Alonso. This is such strange territory for them now. Perez comes in to go to the intermediate tyres. The others are out there plainly on the wrong tyres for the conditions.
100%. That is brave stuff. Those that have stayed out. And look, see the issue of releasing cars because of this pit lane being so tight. This is going to be such a difficult lap on a set of slicks.
The standard of driving on that opening lap was phenomenal. All racing together. There were a few
For
lockups.
second place, Fernando Alonso is going past. Fernando Alonso has turned 5th position and he is tiptoeing through the rain using all of the experience of his starts in Formula One. The 2-time champion is up to 2nd.
Someone's going to bin it. Surely, I know you're saying you're amazed at the driving standards. We should remind ourselves these are the best drivers in the world, but in these conditions, to try and explain to the people at home how difficult it is to keep the car on the road when the tyres lose temperature.
You can live with it, stay out.
You need to tell me that, Vader.
Yeah, understood, Max. I think we'll be in this lap, Max.
They've changed their mind, Jolyon.
Well, there's nothing like hearing the wheel guns in the background, is there? Someone else has taken the gamble. Max is leading. It's still raining out there. Look at the spray, and they're on slicks. Alonso is so comfortable in these conditions. He's up in a second. He started 5th, and now he's hunting down the race leader.
He'll be leading by the time he gets to Tarzan. There's a prediction for you.
Let's find out. We've only got a couple of corners to go. Remember, the 14th and final corner on this racetrack is a banked turn. It is so difficult to apply the power in these conditions. Who comes in? Who is able to come in? Who continues round?
Okay, Lando. Rain is easy enough. Can you keep the car on track?
Yeah.
In comes Max Verstappen, in comes Fernando Alonso. Lando Norris leads the Dutch Grand Prix, but for how much longer? Because here comes George Russell to the inside. Russell close to taking the lead, and he's done it.
What was that? It looked like he braked 200 metres earlier than Russell.
He was cautious, Norris. He'd just seen the 2 cars ahead of him dive into the pits. I think he probably thought they were all going to stay out and brave it. Verstappen is pitted. Where is Sergio Perez? He's ahead, isn't he?
He is absolutely ahead. Perez went early to the intermediate tyre. Perez is in 5th position at the moment. Russell got past Norris at the first turn. Perez is now past Oscar Piastri's P4.
Yeah, we should have come in, man. This is very wet.
Copy, Lewis. So we're going to
And
stay
that's
out
Perez.
to brave this, I think.
Perez is in another league right now. He's got the right tyres on and he's picking them off at will. He's a couple of metres away from the Grand Prix lead, and Sergio Perez manages to time the conditions to perfection. 7th on the grid to the lead of the Dutch Grand Prix.
So compared to Russell, Norris, Albon, Piastri, those guys that he's just passed, he will have to pit again to put some slicks on. But how much time can he make whilst they're doing this? Russell slithers coming out of turn 9 there. They're struggling so much. You look back, there's your next car in Inters. It's Joe in the Alpha.
Absolutely extraordinary.
You cannot stay out there on the slicks and rough it out. You're going to lose a minute. So much time you'll lose being on the slick tyres, so you're going to be out of sequence. But I think
Off
through the
goes
gravel.
Charles Leclerc, he keeps it going, but he dips a couple of intermediate tyres into the gravel trap. It's Perez who has the lead, then it's Russell, then it's Norris. Joe is up to 4th. It will be 2nd place before long. Max Verstappen looking for a way by. He's currently in 6th position, trying to overtake Gasly. This is unbelievable Formula One. It's all about the tyres, it's all about the instinct. This track does dry quickly. Those on slicks need to see that right now, as we see further back Fernando Alonso trying to get on terms with Charles Leclerc. That is in the battle for 7th.
Norris pits then. Norris pits off the slick tyres, led the race for a brief moment this time last lap. Russell lost 20 seconds to Perez on that lap. So his pit stop window is just going to go as well. This has not worked for anyone staying on the slicks.
Max Verstappen, risk versus reward there. Feeling more confident than Pierre Gasly ahead, but Verstappen unable to make the pass. Verstappen is now up to 4th. Gasly is in 3rd place. Zhou Guanyu moves up to 2nd position, a driver fighting for a new contract in Formula One, trying to maintain his place in the sport. And this was the race start that seems like an age ago. Look at the difference in track conditions.
But doesn't it seem irrelevant as well now? The race start. Verstappen and Norris and Russell, where are they now? It's Perez leading from Zhou and Gasly. Verstappen has still managed to cut his losses, as has Fernando Alonso. But I don't know what you thought, DC, but for me it was kind of obvious when there's spray coming off a slick tyre, you think dive in at that first moment.
Absolutely, and I think as a driver you've got to own that moment. You know, you trust in your engineers, of course, as you see Lewis Hamilton taking advantage of everyone sort of slowing up and concentrating into that first corner. But the rain had already started to fall, and for those who decided to go another lap, well, it was a perfect opportunity for Perez. He's out of position on the grid, so he could be braver, more aggressive, and it's worked beautifully for him.
This is on board with Alex Albon on the race start. He was very close with George Russell. Russell managed to get it into 3rd position. What a flurry of race leaders we had there. Mesmerising stuff from some of the talent in the field to keep it on the road on those slick tyres. But the intermediate tyre is the one to be on at the moment.
Russell has just pitted off a soft tyre. It's taken him 5 laps to come in and change off the soft tyre. So he's really tried to eke it out as long as possible, but he has lost
Ferrari
so much
weren't
time.
ready. Sorry, Jolyon. They weren't even ready with the intermediates. How can you be not ready for the intermediates?
That was Leclerc end of lap 1, that Ferrari one. So it was obviously a late call, and it was chucking it down, and they weren't ready for it.
I hear you, a late call. But where are the tyres? They're in the garage. How far is the garage from the pit? what, 10 metres?
Not far at this place.
What do we think? Does he want another set of slicks on the first lap when it's raining? No, it's always going to be the Inter.
Team debriefs with DC must have been fun. This is on board with Fernando Alonso. He was fighting his way by. This was back when he was on the slick tyre and taking, that was Norris for second, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Norris. That was on the second of his moves. The first lap was pretty splendid as well from Fernando, but that hard work was undone by not pitting for the intermediate tyre.
Well, this is live pictures now. We take you back to the trackside action. It is lap 6 of 72, and so much more grip for Max Verstappen. But unless you get the move done into turn 3, you're going to have to do something inventive, and he's thinking about it, but that is close to contact. Gasly is forced to take the high line, and Verstappen takes third position.
Yeah, there'll be, I'm sure, protests from Gasly saying he pushed me off the road, but crucially, no contact.
No, because Gasly drove off the road to avoid Max, who steamed it in there. No DRS at this point in the slippery conditions, and they're all on intermediate. So Max is having to really work for that overtake, and they'll have a look at that, the stewards, because Max definitely used the full width, and I don't think he was ahead by the time they sort of got to the apex, although it's a bit confusing on that corner with the
It
back.
is. The terminology they normally use from the stewards is forcing another driver off the track, but let's see.
Alonso with his nose to the inside of Charles Leclerc. Alonso back to where he started. After all that magnificent driving, he's back in 5th position. Sergio Perez leads. He is up 6 places. Zhou Guanyu is up 13 places from where he started. Verstappen now in 3rd. Gasly up 8th, but down to 4th thanks to that move at turn 3, and Alonso is now in 5th place. There was a 10-second time penalty for Liam Lawson impeding as we go on board with Max Verstappen down to turn 1.
That Alonso move on Leclerc was nice though, wasn't it? Still on the Inters, he's looking good, and that was against a Ferrari on Inters. No DRS, just sent it in, and he's looking really hooked up into 5th place, up behind Gasly now, and he's still hunting for a podium today.
Oh, this could be special. He loves turn 3. Once again, Max Verstappen carves his way by, and it is a Red Bull 1-2 now, but there are 10 seconds between Perez, who took intermediates at the start of the race, and Verstappen, who stayed out there for another tour.
Yeah, there was up to 13 seconds at one point, but Verstappen, though, almost 2 seconds quicker on that the previous lap. So taking more out of your intermediate tyres, Perez can afford to try and play a little bit more with them, but we know this track will dry out quickly.
Max was a second quicker even with that lunge on, or 2 seconds quicker, even passing Gasly in that manner in turn 3. He's absolutely flying now, is Max Verstappen. Even if, worst case, he takes a 5-second penalty. We haven't seen a replay of the move on Gasly. I'm sure he probably won't, but he's going to disappear now from those guys, isn't he?
That's Logan Sargent on slick tyres. He is on slick tyres. Hulkenberg's still on slicks. Bottas is on slicks. Piastri and Albon are the last of the slick runners.
I mean, they've got themselves so stuck on the slicks. Sargent is still 20 seconds per lap off the pace. He's been lapped in 8 laps, and they've made a pit stop. They've lost 20 seconds on one of those laps as well.
Yeah, it's not working, the stay out on the slick option. You've got Albon as the first of those. He's a full 67 seconds behind Perez. 23 seconds, I think, for pit lane time and pit stop. He's still going to be 44 seconds behind.
I mean, they're basically out of the race now, aren't they? Unless there's a safety car. That decision to wait and then wait even more, and now you can't pit for an Inter, is way too late because you'll be in again soon enough. So now they're just waiting for the Inters to run out and it to become a slick track again. But for now, this is just, they're literally running out of contention.
Last time around, Sergio Perez did a 1:26.3, and Max Verstappen, according to our timing page, did a 1:22.1.
I wonder if Perez lost a lot of time lapping Sargent, slithering around on slicks.
And Charles has a front wing damage. Front wing jump damage for Charles. Okay, don't slow me down, please. Okay.
Hold on a minute. Alex Albon just did the fastest first sector of anyone so far in this Grand Prix and a personal best lap. So is the track conditions now swinging back towards slick tyres?
It's getting there. He's now on he's 4 seconds off Verstappen's pace, but it will start to get better and better incrementally now for the slicks. But Albon's 40 seconds away from the top 10. He started 4th. is a disaster for anyone that didn't pit.
Okay, 6 seconds now. Verstappen is absolutely scything into the advantage of his teammate that was at 1.12 seconds. It's now 5.8. The Ferraris are lying stern in 6th and 7th after the most dramatic Grand Prix start of the season so far. That's them swapping ground.
I can only imagine Perez had left the handbrake on after he did the start, because I can't believe the amount of time that Verstappen's taking out of him.
It's going to be with him in a couple of laps at this rate.
Well, he was 1.3 seconds quicker yesterday in qualifying, and he's at least that. That was the average of the last lap there was 1.3 seconds Verstappen took out of Perez. One more lap on the Inters, but it shouldn't be a huge difference right now. Verstappen's in another league, as we're used to this year.
We are on board with Pierre Gasly, who had a top 3 finish in the Belgian Grand Prix sprint race. Last time we had an F1 weekend before this one. He's looking to try and do it in a Grand Prix for the first time since 2021. Jolyon is the driver ahead.
These guys are looking at a podium today, potentially. Zhou, it's a long shot in that Alfa Romeo, but Gasly in the Alpine, if he can pass Zhou quickly here.
This rain is coming. It's going to be lighter than before, 2 or 3 minutes out.
Also, middle of the grid, notable mention for Lawson in 12th place in that Alpha Tauri. Unlikely that he'll maintain that, but nonetheless, he's brought himself in a very difficult first few laps, brought himself right into the middle, close to the points.
He's got a 10-second penalty for impeding.
Yeah, impeding Magnussen early in the race. There's quite a lot going on track at that point, so we'll clarify that once again for you as we look at the battle for the final place on the podium. Gasly, who's been there a couple of times in his Formula One career, 3 times to be exact, and Zhou Guanyu, who is hunting his first trip to a Formula One rostrum today, and Fernando Alonso is close to making this a 3-car battle for P3.
Magnussen pits, presumably going for some slicks now, having pitted early for an Inter. He's going to go back for the slicks and try and take another gain. There he goes on the softs. That was from the top 10 for a driver that started in the pit lane.
It might be slick territory now. Piastri looks set to, on the slick tyre, to set the fastest lap of the race so far. And he is circulating at the moment. Hamilton is coming in to get rid of those intermediate tyres. So those who lost out are looking for the advantage on the slick tyre now.
So for Zhou and Gasly and Alonso, that's our battle for the podium right now. The Red Bulls are 1-2, and at some point they'll converge, I'm absolutely sure. But for Zhou and Gasly, this is crunch time. Through turn 12, and they're going to come through 13, and one of them or all of them have got a pit. This is big, big moment on a circuit that's not that easy to overtake or bolt on some slicks. It's damp offline. Can Alfa Romeo keep Zhou in what would be a net 3rd position?
And to give you the story, let's see how they both are. Zhou comes in looking for his 3rd point score of the season. Gasly goes round again. DRS has been enabled now, so race control believe it's dry enough to use DRS. Alonso came in to get rid of the Inter tyre as well. And Alpine have to run another lap on that intermediate rubber.
I'm surprised Gasly didn't come in. The slicks are definitely better. Piastri's fastest lap there was 4 seconds quicker than Verstappen on the slick tyres, so maybe they're thinking this rain is going to come down again, and they don't want to avoid doing 2 more pit stops. And the gambles on the pit wall today. We're only 11 laps into the race.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? You'll lose less time in this sort of couple of laps window being on the Inter when others are in slicks. But within 2-3 laps, if you're out there gambling on the rain coming, you're just going to lose chunks of time.
Was that Alonso? Was that Alonso getting past Zhou? It was. And Alonso takes the position immediately. Any sniff you give the most experienced Formula One driver ever, he takes it straight away. Mind fired up, and they are pitting the driver in 2nd place. And will they send Perez round once again? Because that might be a change for the lead if they do so.
Surely they've got to pit them both in double stack from 2.5 seconds. Perez will be jumped by miles if they don't.
Looks like Perez has gone round, Verstappen's gone in.
In comes the man chasing Grand Prix victory number 9 in a row. Now with slick tyres attached to the car, it's the narrowest pit lane of the year. Even more so, really, than Monaco. You go over, you dip down onto the concrete apron from the fast lane to the slow lane. That lap, we're going to get an illustration of how much it's cost Gasly. And they would have told Zhou to come in. And now Alonso is making his way to Tarzan corner, and Alonso is going past Pierre Gasly to take that position for what would be a return to the podium. It's another slow stop for Ferrari.
I'm surprised that Gasly stayed out. That really did cost him a little bit there, and Alonso is not the driver you want to give a sniff to. He's up into net third. He might even have a run at Perez, you know, with Red Bull keeping him out for another lap.
They're on board with Charles Leclerc. This is earlier on. That's how he got the front wing damage, decent.
Yeah, banging wheels along with the McLaren, and that was a little bit unfortunate. And actually, a lot of these front wings have been able to take quite a bit of impact, but it's just taken the end plate off, and you'll see on the load sensors just how much aerodynamic performance he's lost in that car. But it's always a big decision to say change the nose, the amount of time it costs you.
Perez comes in, and it was another lap round for Sergio Perez. 21 seconds. You can see the lost time if it goes absolutely to plan. But even with a brilliant stop, this is surely going to be another change of the lead in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Yeah, so the Dutchman will lead again. There we go, picture in picture. Verstappen's going to blast past and back into the lead. Perez should rejoin ahead of Fernando Alonso, you can see in the top of the screen. But he'll have to get those tyres fired up pretty quickly as well, crawling out of the pit lane, hugging the inside there. Fernando will be about 5 seconds back, but with tyres up to 10, and he's fully attacking today.
They put Zhou Guanyu on the medium tyre. Carlos Sainz has just got past him for 5th. Max Verstappen leads the Dutch Grand Prix once again. 13 laps with almost as much action around Zandvoort than we've seen in some entire Grand Prix this year. It has been a thriller, but Red Bull have their championship leader, a man chasing the history today, 3 seconds ahead of Sergio Perez. It was Fernando Alonso who won out on that 3-car battle of the pit stop sequence, and this was Alonso on the soft tyre against Zhou on the medium, and if you give Fernando Alonso a car's width, he is going to find his way by. This is into turn 3, and that is, he risked it on a slightly wet part of track. Through he goes.
It's almost like Zhou hadn't quite understood that he had Fernando behind him. There's no reason for him to take that high line on the outlap, give away the position.
You know, he wasn't fighting the car much either, was he? He was a little bit behind the edge of the limit of grip there, I think, Zhou, in the Alpha. And with Fernando just wringing the neck of the Aston Martin.
Did Max undercut us?
Yes, Max undercut us.
Yes, he did, is the reply on the engineer's talkback panel. Carlos Sainz has the fastest lap of the race. Kevin Magnussen, who went to the slick tyres first in this batch of stops, up to 7th now. If you time it correctly today, there are points available. It's going to be very, very tight there into the braking zone. Ocon going wheel to wheel and being elbowed out of the way. Tsunoda in 9th place. Ocon in 10th. We're on board with Alexander Albon in 11th.
Well, he's had a topsy-turvy Grand Prix so far. 14 laps in, and Albon is back looking at the points. So it did come back to those guys that stayed out on the slick tyres, or some of them at least. Look at the Mercedes duo though, 16th and 18th, and still miles away from it. Norris down in 12th.
Surprised no one's binned it actually in those really tricky conditions, because every other Formula and every session, including Formula One, there's been someone off. I can only recall Leclerc going through the gravel at the chicane.
I was forecasting the podium. How do we mess it up?
Well, it's a day where if you get the calls right, it's inspired and you can change your season narrative. If you get it wrong, we've got more rain in the pit lane. We've got more rain on the commentary box window. This is mesmeric stuff. The driver's going to have to show all of the ability once again. This is Carlos Sainz trying to go past Gasly, who's under investigation for speeding in the pit lane. So Gasly, in a few moments' time, is going to have 5 seconds added to his race time to take at the next pit stop, and he's got a scarlet Ferrari nearly soaring him in half as well.
Yeah, any investigation on something like speeding, you know it's a slam dunk penalty. But also, just a little note for young racers out there, too early for George Russell to be throwing in the towel, giving it, where's my podium? This rain that we see coming down, he could find himself right back in the mix further in the race.
It is tough when you're in the cockpit though. You started third.
Oh yeah, I've complained like him in the past, but now I'm old and wise.
Yeah, he's now third from last. He's down in 18th in his Grand Prix. Just, you know, in the moment you think it's gone up in smoke, he will need some level of intervention. But you've got to now think proactively and think, how can you bring this back in a Mercedes? Oh, it's a tough one to swallow though.
That was a very tight moment between Yuki Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon on the main straight. There was a car's width eventually presented to Esteban Ocon, but I don't think he would have liked the chop across that he got. Tsunoda's been cleared by Ocon and Albon now, as the track temperature is 24 degrees. Gasly feeling the need to go on the defensive one more time. Sainz up against the Alpine, trying the up and under. We go driver's eye view, still no way by. This is the battle for fourth.
Looks sunny out of the window now again, so I think that latest bit of drizzle is not going to affect the track at the moment, but it's windy as well, so the weather's just blowing in suddenly very quickly.
We've got Sargent. Sargent has brought out that yellow flag as Piastri makes his first stop. So Piastri goes in to change it, and Logan Sargent has found the wall once again in this Dutch Grand Prix weekend.
That'll be a full safety. I don't see any crane there, so they'll need to deploy a vehicle onto the track to recover that.
Absolutely right, DC. There is no crane down there. There's one at turn 13, there's one at turn 1. It's yellow flags at the moment, but there's no way without upgrading that to a full safety car. You're going to have to put a vehicle on the track. They're letting cars go through in damp conditions at the moment. There we go. We've got to the full safety car.
Does it feel like these decisions just take maybe 10 seconds too long? It's completely clear you're going to have to go for the safety car.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to do things by the book down there after recent years. We'll condense that conversation down to the sentence recent years in race control. But yeah, Sargent, most important thing that he's okay. Fighting for his Formula One future. He put an American in the top 10 of qualifying for the first time in 30 years yesterday. But that's 2 trips to the wall and no points. That's what he was looking for today, his first points in Formula One.
And his teammates up in 8th again. So Piastri had just pitted before this safety car, so that may well not work out too well for Oscar Piastri. He stayed out there on the soft tyres as well, so that's just his first pit stop, I think, of the Grand Prix.
Now looking out the commentary box window, ponchos are coming off, so coincides with the sun now shining. But we are in a really good position with the commentary box with the prevailing wind. We get to see the raindrops on our window screen, which is sort of reminiscent of what it's like being a Grand Prix driver, as we see that replay there of his one-way ticket to the barrier.
You okay?
No, I crashed. I don't know what happened, man. Something failed on the front right when I hit the curb.
Yeah, it looked like he got to the apex curb at turn 8 there, and then it didn't look like something failed, or the curb was extremely slippery and just skipped him on towards the barriers.
Full safety car is out, and now we're into the strategic window. Now, if you're outside the top 10, you're trying something different. Magnussen's gamble early on brought him up 13 places. Sargent left to mull what might have been. His teammate is in 8th position, but on 16-lap-old soft tyres. And so he's been making his way through a very dramatic start to the Dutch Grand Prix whilst all of that was going on. Apologies if you've said it on the other side of the comm box, but Pierre Gasly got that 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and you are up to date. We're behind Bernd Mailander after a frenetic start and the rain moving away for the time being. So we're in slick conditions, albeit with a track that still has a lot of slippery tarmac off the racing line and not a lot of grip due to the weather this weekend.
Well, this will be a sort of reprieve for the Mercedes drivers. Russell, we just heard, unsure how they'd managed to get it so wrong. Well, he's still down in 18th position, but at least the whole field will bunch up, and that will give him a chance to get overtaking and haul that Mercedes back towards the front end they expected to be at today. Piastri and Norris, the 2 McLarens, will hope to get their way back forward, because we thought behind Max today it would be a McLaren v Mercedes battle for the podium.
Let's hear from Sergio Perez.
Is there more rain expected?
There are cells on the radar. First one, 35 minutes away.
So rain is not coming our way for 30 minutes, the information being relayed to Sergio Perez. We only heard a snippet of did Max undercut us? That was the question, and we heard nothing else as well. Piastri went on to another set of soft tyres, so he's going to have to find his way onto another compound as well. Currently down 6 positions from where he started the Grand Prix. Norris is down 9, Charles Leclerc down 3, and now we are cycling through the stops. Russell's on the hard tyre just to get you up to speed, and need a breather in the commentary box after that frenetic start to proceedings.
Yeah, was a very, very exciting start. Nothing like a little bit of drizzle to get the heart rate pumping. And, well, other than Sargent pinning it, we say driving standards have been absolutely fantastic. There's been great racing there as well. And, well, we've got another, 53 laps to go, 54 laps to go.
It doesn't get better than that start.
Yeah.
Out there, do you stay on slicks? Do you pit for intermediates? There's spray kicking off. You're surrounded by cars on a punishing, undulating circuit. And in those conditions, everyone stayed really clean. Sargent there with the off, and he's sitting down and collecting his thoughts before he'll head back and explain to the world what happened. But beyond that, the standard of driving, I've been so impressed this year generally, but that start really was terrific. It's the strategists that will be answering the more questions from the opening part of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, a really tough situation to be in there. Interesting contrast between Red Bull and Mercedes. They left Lewis Hamilton out there. He was 13th off the line, so they could have taken the gamble. Red Bull, with their car out of position, went to the intermediate tyres. Mercedes went for stay out there, and in the end it was intermediate territory. But this track, we know, dries quickly, and the example is directly in front of you. Track temperature is now 27 degrees.
So where are we at from here? 20 laps in, 19 laps in, 72-lap race. Probably it's a one-stop from this point on, if there's no more rain coming, although with the way that we've been going and the radio messages we've heard, it can happen at any moment. Maybe half an hour is the most likely estimate for the moment. But we're looking like a one-stop race. Everyone in the main contenders is on the soft tyre. Zhou is on the medium. He's the outlier in sixth. Further back, drivers are on the mediums or even the hards in the case of George Russell. So he'll look to do a conventional reverse strategy, try and put on some softs towards the end of the race. And it's a little bit more back to normal, but just with a completely mixed up grid from where we had it, bar the pole man, who seems to just get everything right still.
Yeah, even when he dropped down to fifth, I think at one point, he managed to work his way back up mightily fast on those intermediates. But yeah, the losers definitely are the McLaren drivers. Hamilton still finds himself in 13th, so he hasn't actually moved after all that activity. But George Russell down in 17th. That is a long race, assuming no more wet weather or safety cars, if you're just doing it in a pure strategy of splitting this race.
And switching to a hard time, Mercedes are obviously just chancing their arm on something different here. It'll go long. I mean, how long is long? Can he even try and go to the end? He doesn't have to pit again in theory.
It is a big gamble though, because they may get the tyre life, but they won't get any performance. The hard tyres, apparently, are just sliding around all over the place.
And it won't help him clear those cars ahead. If he wants to get racy with Hülkenberg, Bottas, slower cars, he's not on the tyre. It's going to give him a huge amount of grip to go on a charge. So it could be a bit frustrating from the cockpit, that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch once you get this race restarted, whether Russell can make those hard tyres work. But 100% information, talking with the Pirelli engineers, is that the drivers wanted to try and avoid that tyre if they possibly could.
Okay, circulating behind the safety car, just to tell you the state of play with the positions gained. So Perez gaining 5 places off the line, Alonso up a couple, some good overtakes in there as well. Gasly up 8, but with that penalty, 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. Sainz was looking very racy, was trying to get past Gasly on track. That'll be an interesting battle on the restart. And Zhou Guanyu is on the medium tyre. So he is currently in 6th place. The gambler was Kevin Magnussen. He's up 13. And Alex Albon hasn't made a stop yet. He's on 19-lap-old tyres, 20-lap-old tyres now.
The gainers are the ones that stopped end of lap 1. And that was when it started to really chuck it down. So that's Perez, who led the race until the team undercut him with Verstappen. That's also then Gasly and Zhou.
So it will be plan A, no? From here.
Yeah, there might be some rain in 15 laps, a close to 25 laps. Hard to say how strong that will be at this point.
You love to hear it.
Yeah, plan A definitely will be that one stop from here, as you were saying. The track is now clear in that sector where Sargent had the incident, so we can expect this to be the final lap behind the safety car, presuming that the marshals don't have any barrier repairs to do.
The other driver that did pit at the end of lap 1 was Charles Leclerc, and he should have been poised to make a big step. He should have been poised to be right there with Perez and in the top 3, but that was where the tyres weren't ready, those inters, and
yeah, damage to the nose as well. That was a little bit on, it's just one of those racing incidents, wasn't it, rather than, he has to own the mistake he made in qualifying. I guess he has to on this one as well, but it was a racing thing, I think.
It was so close, wasn't it? Slicks in the damp and side by side with Piastri with barely an inch to be given, and just a little oversteer moment. It's a harsh one in these conditions.
The safety car is in at the end of the lap, and we will go back to a more conventional contest, but we do have drivers completely out of position compared to what we saw in Formula One qualifying yesterday. So a track where it is notoriously difficult to overtake could well have more than its fair share of action. If you're still ready and with us after the 21 laps where the drivers showed us all of their talent and a bit more. Logan Sargent finding the barrier, and we will conclude the safety car period. It will be over to Max Verstappen, who's in exactly the right position that he wants to be in. He will dictate the pace. There are still wet parts of the track. You don't want to go too wide over a curb. There are still moments where there were white lines yesterday that were slippery, where you don't tend to see that at modern racetracks. So drivers still have to be aware.
Keep an eye on Alonso. He's been so racy. He's been so good at the race start, the pit lane exit, cold tyres. He's been the man so far, in third place there in the Aston.
Yeah, he's just sitting back, isn't he? He's going, right, this is what I think Max Verstappen's going to do. How am I going to use that to my advantage on Perez?
Max Verstappen at a crawling pace. Even when he's glacially waiting for a restart, he can bring the crowd to their feet. The Formula One field bunched in your picture. This is the 13th turn, and it's flat to the floor from here through the 14th corner, the banked one, to take us back to green flag racing.
Look at that already, Max. You can see how he's opened out the gap, but look at Alonso in the slipstream of Checo Perez.
Alonso's going to have a chance. Oh, and Perez knew it, defended. Sainz looking for the opportunity on Gasly. Sainz is going to be close on the exit of this corner. And still, Gasly defends.
Alonso's like the turn 3 move, but I think he's going to be too far back. Then Perez recovered well through turns 1 and 2, and actually Gasly now right with Fernando. So status quo in the top 5.
So one retirement, second retirement of the season for Logan Sargent. Perfect restart for Max Verstappen, for Sergio Perez, and for Red Bull. And the driver looking most likely to make a move is the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Make our way back through. We've got Alex Albon, who's on old soft tyres, but is getting pretty racy. Of course, there will be a difference in how you warm them up at the moment. And there's Lando Norris. They weren't happy with wide moment there for Oscar Piastri, and Bottas, I believe, has got past the Australian driver with that moment when he was wide into turn 10 that brings you onto the straight to this corner, and that's a position loss for the McLaren driver.
Yeah, there must have been something that happened ahead of that to go that wide into the corner there. The traditional line and the entry is has you more on the left as you come out of the previous corner. Good onboard footage there. No DRS at this stage, but a nice slipstream on the Alpine that has gone wide again. It tends to be its line through turn 1, but not enough to allow the Ferrari to get a task done.
Sainz looks pretty quick though. Gasly has a 5-second penalty, but Sainz will need to clear him if he wants to fight with Alonso.
Albon got past Kevin Magnussen. Alex Albon has been able, despite those tyres being quite old, 23 laps old, no stop, fired them up well and got past Kevin Magnussen. And this is how he did it. We're on board with the Thai driver, doesn't need DRS, because you know the case with the Williams by now. It's rapid in a straight line, and that's going to be a moment for him to enjoy.
What the f was that?
Yep, copy, Alex. We saw it. We're on it.
So does he get him into 3, or was that a lap before? That must have been the restart.
I didn't see a lot wrong with that.
No, I was just going to say, I'll tell you what that is. It's called racing.
Sceptical faces in the commentary box for that. Okay, one lap later, Albon did get past Magnussen, who is now defending from Esteban Ocon. Only 0.3 of a second away. There's a 1.5 second gap out front by the Red Bulls, trying to claim another 1-2 today. Max Verstappen trying to keep this winning run going. He's not been beaten in this sport since all the way back to the end of April. Seeing if anyone's got a chance to make a move further back. I believe that we're in the same order that we started the lap.
Yeah, Joe is the man that's bunching up the field. Ocon sweeps past Magnussen. That must have come through turn 1, and he carried it all the way to the entry of turn 2, so Ocon's through. Magnussen started from the pit lane, remember? They've called the shots right with Haas for the inters, back for the slicks. They've nailed the calls, but they haven't got the car to fight. And K-Mag was pretty unhappy with qualifying yesterday, just didn't have great pace, couldn't get the car working. They're sort of artificially high now, and he's dropping back.
There was meant to be an updated front wing on the American team's car, but that was damaged in a practice crash for Magnussen. And every little update helps in Formula One. He is defending and looking in the mirrors rather than trying to stay ahead. Yuki Tsunoda, the next one to line him up. This is on board with Ocon, DC.
Yeah, as he runs out, a little replay here. Not picking up the slipstream. The Haas going defensive, sparking as it drags its tail. And there the pass was done on that wider line. It does seem that the Alpine is comfortable on a slightly wider way through Tarzan. Most others drop down into the classic apex.
Yeah, it's slightly banked there, so you can get away with it. It does mean that you can kind of overtake inside or outside a little bit. That was the move Albon on Magnussen then the lap before as well. That was the inside, so he's facing attacks inside and out.
Whoa, that's a late move on the brakes. How about that from Oscar Piastri, who takes back the position from Bottas, who doesn't want to give it up. And after that wide moment, driving it on the ragged edge through there, and that's a fine pass. He's retaken the place, he's up to 14.
Committed, really committed. Bottas now looking in his mirrors with Hulkenberg just behind. Love to see it from Piastri. He's way down from where he should be in a fast car. So is his teammate. Neither McLaren in the top 10. They won't have seen that coming at all, but just sent it, full commitment, and he made a nice pass, and then almost lost it coming into 3 as well.
Black and white warning flag for Kevin Magnussen for moving under braking. So race control noted that moment, but they've just given him the driving standards flag. No penalty for him. We're on board with Lewis Hamilton, who knows the gap ahead will disappear into turn 11, but he is putting all of the pressure on Charles Leclerc, who is in 12th place.
Yeah, it's amazing to think Hamilton started 13th. We had all those rounds of excitement, the pit stops, and finds himself still in 13th, but he will have DRS here.
Talking of DRS, Fernando Alonso has got it. He was inside a second until a few moments ago on Sergio Perez. And that is a late move to the inside for Lewis Hamilton, who says goodbye to 13th position and takes 12th on the exit of the corner, gets past the Ferrari.
Leclerc's just a bit hobbled here, isn't he? No pace at all.
There's another one, another move. And yeah, the Ferrari not looking happy at all. Another place gained for Oscar Piastri. And Leclerc trying to come back as we sweep through 5, 6 and 7. This is the direction change as we make our way to turn 8, and Leclerc couldn't come back.
I know there's mitigating circumstances, but we would imagine we have a McLaren, a Mercedes, a Ferrari battling off around 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th.
Yeah, and Williams up in 6th, Alfa Romeo in the points, Haas in the points, Alfa Tauri in the points. Everyone at the tail end of the Constructors' Championship is still in the points right now. Albon has passed Zhou on the last lap as well, so he's got himself into 6th. And has got good pace in that car, so that'll be a bit of breathing space for him, and he'll hope that Zhou can just bunch everyone else behind.
Alonso is very happy through the 3rd sector. He's getting that gap inside of DRS. We go on board with him now, and making use of the DRS zone down the main straight to Tarzan corner. He is within half a second when he gets to turn 1, and then the might of the Red Bull in the middle sector comes back to the fore. But he's having a great run. He's restored to the front of the field. We've seen him, Alonso magic in mixed conditions, and he is looking to try and claim 2nd place in this Grand Prix. The man who's been on the podium so far this year on 6 occasions.
He's absolutely on it today, Fernando. Everything that he's doing at the wheel is just brilliant. The start, the pit lane sequence, the pit stop sequence, the restart was very good, putting Perez under pressure. And maybe we shouldn't be surprised. He out-qualified Checo yesterday in kind of dry conditions right at the end of qualifying as well. Perez is not having a very strong weekend. And again, he's one that got the strategy right, pitted at the end of lap 1, led the race, and he's just falling away really quickly from his teammate now.
Yeah, more notably in that 1st sector, that seems to be where he's losing a chunk of time. They were all nip and tuck, 26.9 for Verstappen, Perez, Alonso in the middle sector, but that 1st sector, that's what I refer to as the scary one.
Yeah, that's the one where you are so committed through there.
And it's the one that Sargent had the crash on yesterday, especially in these sort of conditions, still damp patches offline.
We are on board with Lando Norris, who is the next car trying to get past the Haas, and he completes that task to improve back to the points. So Magnussen without the car to try and fight back, and Norris up to 10th position then as he tries to score good points once again. ever since they updated that McLaren car at the Austrian Grand Prix. It has come alive. They're trying to bail themselves out of all of the drama that we saw earlier on. Hamilton, the next one, chasing the Haas.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Hamilton, he's probably going to be held here until later in the lap. I guess there might be a chance at the chicane, but more than likely it'll come on the main straight. So this allows Norris to sort of break the DRS to Hamilton when he eventually gets past that Haas.
Yeah, well, Mercedes were hoping they'd be fighting with McLaren today. Speaking to Toto before, yeah, hopefully we'll be fighting with the McLarens. They are.
Just not in the part of the racetrack they were hoping for, but that's a battle that's going to go on, and it is very tight in the Constructors' Championship. Currently, you've got Mercedes in second place, Aston Martin in third, and Ferrari and McLaren have been resurgent in recent times. Currently P5, fastest lap for Max Verstappen, a 1:15.4 for our race leader.
Dark skies ahead. Not raining as yet, but it's suddenly got very overcast.
Hamilton is making that position into turn one, and the pass completed. Yuki Tsunoda has been shown the black and white warning flag for driving standards for forcing another driver off the track.
Well, looking down the running order, Russell in 17, not looking like that hard tyre's really working for him. Doesn't look like he's got it switched on. 17.4, kind of held there just behind Bottas. Comparison to Hamilton, who's now got some clean air. So let's see, we'll get a direct comparison between the medium and the soft tyre.
Yeah, even if he's not going to do a pit stop in the rest of the race, he's going to need to overtake them, because the field spread will just mean that the guys in the points can pit and emerge ahead of him, and even if they emerge just behind them, then have a fresh tyre to go attacking Russell on an old hard later on. So at the moment, Russell not doing enough in that Mercedes to bring his race to life.
Yeah, real disappointment for George Russell, who would have been hoping to return to form. He said he wasn't happy with his qualifying before the summer break went away. Had a thought about changing the approach. It paid off yesterday. The circumstances today have shuffled him to the back of the pack, and he's the only driver on that white-walled hard tyre. 3.7 seconds, the gap out front, as we focus on the battles further back. And another overtake for Oscar Piastri. Poor old Kevin Magnussen. The team did well. They called it nicely, but they just don't have any pace at all. Magnussen, who along with Nico Hülkenberg has been signed up for another season at this Haas team for next year. It will be 7th season with the team for the Danish driver. They've loved working together, but he's got no pace in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, Haas, the team on the longest pointless run at the moment. Miami was the last time Magnussen scored the point there, and well, Hülkenberg did actually get a couple in the sprint
yeah,
in Austria.
In the Grand Prix, it's the longest run for them.
Exactly, on a Sunday. And you can see why. The sprint was different when Hülkenberg scored. It was wet, and he had a great qualifying, as we've seen from Nico this year. But the pit stop in the sprint really negated tyre deg and long-run pace woes. Now they're just slipping back very, very quickly. Hülkenberg's actually kind of standing where he is there, and 14th has actually just cleared Leclerc, who's still running around in a hobble Ferrari. Magnussen dropping back very quickly.
Also dropping back in the battle for second place, Fernando Alonso lost the DRS, and after losing the DRS, the pace has been telling. There's 2.2 seconds.
Darker clouds coming in.
Understood, thank you.
And it's a late lunch from Yuki Tsunoda, who's able to take the place on Zhou Guanyu, and that is for 8th position. Tidy pass. Tsunoda was shown the black and white warning flags for chopping Ocon on the main straight a couple of laps ago.
That nice little message there from Max to his engineer, and which no surprise that while he's driving, he's having a little look up at the cloud, trying to gain as much intel as he can. But I think actually, Jolyon, to put us in the cockpit, people might be surprised at home to understand that when you're driving, you're very much in the moment, looking at braking points, positioning the car, but you do have that spare capacity to think, did I leave the gas on?
Yeah, sometimes some very odd thoughts pop to your mind, because the driving becomes second nature. On board with Lando here, he's probably concentrating a bit more on Zhou because he's got to make an overtake in a moment. But when you're out front, you're just metronomically pumping in the laps. He's building the gap incrementally to Perez. And you do think about other things, other factors, the weather. Sometimes you'll even look at the big screen and see, we've heard radio this year from Fernando Alonso and others, looking at the big screen and seeing what's happening in the rest of the race. The spare capacity that particularly the best drivers have to race on the limit, but think about other things, think about the strategy, etc. is just stunning.
Time for another overtake by the looks of things. Even though Zhou Guanyu has the DRS, Lando Norris has an update in McLaren. He sweeps around the outside to take the place away from the Chinese driver. It's 9th position for Lando Norris as Max Verstappen sets the fastest first sector of the race so far. The gap is approaching 4 seconds at the head of the field, then 3 seconds between Perez and Alonso.
So how far up do we think Norris can get then? If we have just one more stop this afternoon, he's 19 seconds off the lead. And what has he got in front of him? Tsunoda next up pretty close. I guess he's got Albon as a target. He's only 6 seconds up the road.
And we are expecting drops to a light shower in around 10 minutes.
I left the washing out. That's terrible.
Well, it has been your comment yesterday, DC. The weather was changing even quicker than it does in Scotland. Sums it up on the banks of the North Sea here. And we've got Jolyon now seeing Lewis Hamilton claim the position in a few moments' time. You would suspect Jolyon on that medium compound of tyre, and he's in a sea of soft compounds. Lewis Hamilton is another driver running them as well. And look at this, look at the speed as he builds up to 200 miles per hour and takes his place back in the points. That's the minimum he was expecting today. P10 for Hamilton.
Up into the points, Norris getting there as well. Piastri is the McLaren now just behind Joe, and he'll try and make the pass. There's nothing better than just a dynamic race, is there? Bit of rain, bit of sun, bit of rain again. For these guys in the car, for all the teams, this is nightmare stuff. They have to work so hard, so many things can go wrong. For everyone watching it, we've had so many classics in this sort of scenario.
Yeah, it's brilliant. If you're not George Russell, who's still running around in 17th, still trying to figure out where his predicted podium went and going nowhere on those hard tyres.
And look in the back of Valtteri Bottas's car. We've seen what's happened between those two in the past when they've gone wheel to wheel. So this will be a day to forget without intervention of another safety car. It is an old school track though. The walls are close. The gravel trap features at that corner, at the next corner that they're heading to, at turn 1 as well. The Grand Prix could yet change once again.
Yeah, chance of another safety car is definitely still there. A little bit of weather around, even just in the dry conditions, we've seen a lot of thrills and spills through the practice sessions as well. Norris is stuck behind Yuki Tsunoda, getting a run, but he's just a little bit too far back into Tarzan, the first corner, and he could do with clearing Tsunoda quite quickly here if he wants to challenge up towards the top 5, maybe even a podium in a quick McLaren. But being stuck in here, missing a little bit of top speed there compared to the AlphaTauri. He's just got to get this move done as soon as he can.
A tale of two constructors. AlphaTauri find themselves down in 10th position in the Constructors' Championship. McLaren are looking ahead after updating the car successfully. Fernando Alonso set the fastest first sector of the Grand Prix so far, but it's very close to the time set by Perez as they continue to push on. We ride on board with the British driver who started from the front row what seems like an age away, but now he's back into damage limitation. Something he was very good at, DC, in the Belgian Grand Prix when all hope looked lost at one point and he fought his way back to the points.
Yeah, and it does seem, as we, any colour you like in Holland, as long as orange. The mascot there, enjoying seeing them pass through the chicane. What is quite reassuring as well here, it doesn't look like there's any tyre management going on. It looks like they're driving to the compound they have. They're hustling. And that is actually really nice to see. We've not had anyone go, oh, thermal deg, oh.
It's a day to get on with it. And yeah, the cars have looked animated all the way throughout the weekend. It continues on. Ocon has been reporting a few problems in 7th position, according to our team in the gallery, who are across the team radio. So the battle behind is Tsunoda and Norris. We'll see if that gap changes. Let's go on board with the 22-year-old Australian, Oscar Piastri, who is looking to try and take the place with a vibrating front wing, flexing a little bit down into turn 1.
Normal. I mean, it looks like a lot more movement than we'd be used to.
Yeah.
I think that's because of the contact with Leclerc?
Exactly, I think it must be that. It looks like the upper flap of the front wing that's just not quite fixed on properly, flapping around, and that must have been from the lap 1 contact with Leclerc. It was that part of the car, but Piastri's going pretty quickly still, so a bit of flex in there is not doing him a lot of problems.
Yeah, bit of aero elasticity, bit of an aero test for the McLaren team.
Yeah, they do have flex tests to make sure that it doesn't do what it's doing. If you designed it that way, it would be banned, but because of the damage, that's the case. Logan Sargent clearly taking it personally with what's happened The big one is next week for Logan Sargent. It's all about next week. That is the last track that he knows really well before we get to Abu Dhabi. It is vital for him. I know he did some FP1s, but talking a full racing weekend in Formula 2, next week is big for that slippery Williams in a straight line.
Yes, indeed. It does seem that Lando Norris is sort of approaching Tsunoda with caution. As you know, Jolyon, when different drivers, you have different levels of confidence as to how hard you can race them, how much room they'll give you, how unpredictable they might be.
Yeah, Yuki is aggressive in defence. We saw it with Joe in Barcelona. He actually got a penalty for defending really hard and forcing Joe across the turn 1 runoff.
Any two-time world champions that come to mind, Joe? Alonso, maybe?
For aggressive defence?
Yeah.
You know when you're racing Fernando Alonso, because you can never shake him off. He's just popping up every other corner until he's through. He's a tough character, but I think Lando would be loving to race Fernando right now up in the front places. Sometimes when you're racing the midfielders, they're throwing more caution to the wind. You know, 4 points for Tsunoda today would be like a Grand Prix win for him. So he has to try and cling on to everything he has. It's going to be more points than the whole season put together, and Norris is attacking again. So
Tsunoda desperately trying to cling on to this because this would be a season's best for the Japanese driver. He knows it, and he defends once again. These drivers glued together now. Tsunoda in 8th, then Norris and Hamilton in the lower reaches of the points.
Yeah, all of this battling is helping Hamilton bring his way onto the gearbox of Lando Norris. So he's going to now not only be the attacker, but he's going to be attacked from behind. And I definitely sense he's being a little bit more cautious with Tsunoda. He really needed to get on him and get past him.
It's a torrid day for Charles Leclerc, and George Russell has picked him off. He's made his way past the Ferrari driver and up to 14th position, and that's how he did it at turn 10.
So there must be some floor damage for Leclerc. I wonder if it's similar to what Sainz had after that Piastri contact in Belgium, because the front wing actually looks okay. You can change a front wing very easily, and he's still just floundering around, dropping down, having a miserable race.
Yeah, times are nowhere.
Alex, we're in a really good place, so we're still extending. This is an awesome job.
So Williams have been talking to Alexander Albon because he's run all the way through this Grand Prix on the soft tyre. They're happy in 6th place.
Max, expecting some very light rain in around 5-6 minutes. It will hit turn 8 and 13, but it is very light.
The only problem you have is to get to 13, of course, you've got to get through 8. So I don't know quite how accurately they can predict just those 2 corners.
Giving Max Verstappen the warning he was asking for a couple of laps ago. So a Red Bull 1-2, Alonso gaining a couple of positions. Gasly still with that 5-second penalty hanging over him. Sainz, who's will be able to give you a really detailed drawing of the rear assembly of the Alpine because he's been there all the way through since the rain subsided. And Albon just proving whether it is one lap pace, whether it is race conditions, that Williams is quick around this configuration.
It's the most peachy radio message you could possibly hear. We're doing great, we're keeping extending. He's running in 6th place. Again, we spoke about 4 points for Tsunoda. If Albon finishes in 6th, this would be huge for Williams.
Yeah, that is getting embarrassing for Ferrari, which has been overtaken by Bottas. Leclerc definitely got an issue there. That is a wounded car.
He'll retire before long, I think. It's very much like Sainz in Belgium.
It's getting into that territory, isn't it, where there's no point to put mileage on components when you have no hope of scoring points. A tough time for Leclerc, who is having tentative contract talks about extending his time at Ferrari. Nothing signed yet. As we look out to the North Sea, rain in the distance. Are we going to get another twist of this Grand Prix, which Red Bull are in control of at the moment with a 1-2?
Yeah, we know it's old school, because can you imagine them planning, trying to get a Grand Prix track beside a beauty spot beach? Yes. It's possible in the 60s. Not anymore.
Yeah, the old track used to go straight on at turn 8. It used to be even faster than it is now, and it's pretty quick at this part. But they did build a holiday resort where the track used to be, so we've got a slightly shorter version that we are used to. This the 3rd running of the Dutch Grand Prix of the modern era, 33rd overall.
Entire life for the soft is +10, +10. You don't think we can make it to the end? At the moment, we don't think, but we are monitoring.
Let's go on board with the debutant. Liam Lawson finds himself in Formula One and staring at the back of Charles Leclerc. He will be learning with every lap that he runs out there. And Lawson finds himself 7 seconds ahead of Jolyon, who's just made a stop to soft tyres further back. But the man who was third in the Formula 2 Championship last year and has been racing in Japan, this is close now to the back of Leclerc as Ferrari's day goes from bad to worse with their Monegasque driver, who's been on the podium at the last Grand Prix in Belgium, but is driving a car that's clearly hobbled after that contact earlier on in the race. But a proud moment for the Lawson family to be competing. Daniel Ricciardo breaking a bone in his hand earlier on this weekend. Lawson on reserve driver duties, had one practice session, so that was an hour, 1 hour of qualifying, but he didn't get the full hour because he only had 18 minutes before he was eliminated, and it will have been an eye-opening experience.
It's the first time he's ever driven this car on slick tyres. Imagine lining up on the grid and you've never turned a wheel. You're making your Formula One debut, you've never turned a wheel in the car on slicks.
Yeah, that is a very good point, but he is active as he goes for the pass into the chicane, and yeah, not much resistance from that wounded Ferrari. But he's racing in Japan, or he has been racing in Japan, in a formula called Super Formula, which I have in my mind's eye, but Jolyon is going to explain to us in more detail that that's kind of like a Formula 2 plus. You know, they're really intense battles out there, tyre wars and the likes.
Yeah, it's a very, very professional series out in Japan. Purely races in Japan with a lot of super Japanese talent that come through. And sometimes you get Pierre Gasly went to go and do a bit of racing out there as well.
Yeah, it tends to be the championship that if Helmut Marko thinks you haven't done enough in Formula 2, he'll send you for a year in Japan. Not as punishment, I wouldn't say punishment, but it's close to it. It's Liam Lawson, who did get past Charles Leclerc.
The sushi is so much better in Japan. It's not punishment.
I mean, it's not a bad place to be sent. This is how he made the pass, and you will have seen that Charles Leclerc came back.
It's quite a culture shock, I think. But you could bear in mind that Japanese drivers like Yuki Tsunoda moves from Japan to Europe, to the UK, or now in Italy, and you know they have the reverse of that as well. But it's a completely different art racing out there. The circuits, there's obviously Suzuka, they've got legendary circuits, and the cars, they are really quick. They've got a huge amount of downforce, and it's decent preparation, as we've seen with Gasly, and Lawson's equipping himself well as well.
We heard the conversation between engineer and driver. Sainz has extended that stint, but he's now stopped. So Sainz drops to 11th place as he comes out. He'll come out between the warring pair of Russell and Hülkenberg. Hard tyre versus medium tyre there, Mercedes versus Haas. And 7.4 seconds for the race lead out front. Max Verstappen on for a maximum of 26 points. Now means that Alex Albon is up to 5th. Here's the inevitable message.
So the situation is getting worse, so we retire the car. We retire.
That was always coming. Charles Leclerc retires from the Dutch Grand Prix, and that is his first retirement since Australia, the 3rd race of the year.
41 laps of pain for Leclerc, that really was. In the mix at the start, bit of contact, and then irreparable damage. So he finally is put out of his misery then. 30 laps to go for everyone else, and Leclerc's just been looking in his mirrors, suffering through it, and Ferrari have given up hope.
Lando Norris has been called in.
Yeah, he's given up on trying to get past Tsunoda. He spent too many laps there. And DRS trained to Hamilton as well behind him, so he'll be trying to do the undercut.
Norris pitting at this stage as we have a look at Max Verstappen, who is power sliding his way through turn number 9. Alonso has set the fastest first sector of the Grand Prix as well, so we're getting into pit stop territory. Good stop from McLaren. That 2.2 seconds is extremely useful for him in his battle to claim more points today.
So it's undercut territory for Norris. Sainz is thinking the same with Ferrari to try and get ahead of Pierre Gasly and potentially put pressure on Alonso for that 3rd place. And that'll be the real goal there for Sainz, because Gasly, of course, still has a 5-second penalty, which he'll have to take out of pit stop, which I imagine he's going to take in a few laps' time. So it's Sainz aiming for Alonso's 3rd, and Alonso's up the pace. Fastest first sector of the whole Grand Prix.
This is George Russell clearing Nico Hülkenberg. A few moments ago, hard tyre versus medium tyre, Mercedes versus Haas. Maybe committed to do it into turn 11, and he was.
That's his first move, isn't it? Since he fitted those hard tyres. It's been a long slog for him, but he's getting to the fringes of the points, and he will go to the end. So if those on the soft thought they maybe could, Russell absolutely will. Ocon pits in the Alpine.
Fast laps now being set. Sainz has got the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far with those fresh Pirelli tyres. And they're all here to cheer a Dutch Lion. So that's why we've got the mascot in the stands. What a time to be a Max Verstappen fan. The last few weeks, the last few years of Formula One.
Has there ever been a bad time to be a Max Verstappen fan? I mean, his career has just been one huge rise, hasn't it?
It has been. He had to wait 7 seasons before he got a tilt at the World Championship. He was always getting race wins.
He was always the plucky, tough racer, though, wasn't he? The thorn in the Mercedes side for a few years, the 2020 season, 2019. Even if the championship had to wait, he was always just fighting and aggressive, trying to pick up the odd bits and pieces here or there. And it's just been just almost one smooth ascension, hasn't it? All the way through to 1 title, 2 titles, about to be 3, claiming the records as he goes. And the Dutch crowd here, they absolutely love him. So much support.
Incredible support. They were making their way in 9 a.m. this morning as we see Lewis Hamilton getting close to Yuki Tsunoda ahead. And Alex Albon finally into the pits to get rid of those tyres that he's been running since the very start of the Grand Prix.
Well, credit to Tsunoda. He hasn't made any mistakes. And Hamilton has a little sniff on that inside line just to sort of weigh up his options. But Tsunoda's handled the pressure from Lando Norris, now taking that from Lewis Hamilton. So will Hamilton go down the same route and decide to bail out and get some tyres?
So Norris has undercut these guys. He's just on the fastest lap of the race. So Norris is definitely going to be up ahead when these guys pit. If they pit, Hamilton's squirming around. It's like he's getting through these softs now to the end of their life again, turns it into 9.
Rear tyre at low speed just seems to be giving up though. He's like sawing away in the steering wheel like the violinists that we saw ahead of the Grand Prix.
Lando Norris does have the fastest lap of the race. That is Sergio Perez, who was pitting from 2nd position. These are the last scheduled stops before the end of the Grand Prix. Our 13th of the season. And Perez coming out all on his own. He'll be ahead of this Tsunoda and Hamilton battle on track. Norris had to clear Valtteri Bottas. He's currently at turn 12. And we're cycling through with Sainz really pushing on now. And in comes Lewis Hamilton to get rid of those tyres that were looking very second-hand. It goes back on to the soft contact.
So is Tsunoda just going to try and run this through in the AlphaTauri? He's had clean air. I'm surprised he's not tried to cover off Hamilton or preempted that one to try and keep track position, because even the faster cars, the McLaren and the Mercedes, they haven't been able to blast past an AlphaTauri. But if he pits now, he's just thrown away track position with an undercut. Norris is ahead, and Hamilton now, with a sensible outlap, will jump Tsunoda as well.
This was Esteban Ocon getting past Valtteri Bottas. And it's Ocon, it's not Gasly, it is the French driver. There you go, currently in 11th position, and he makes his way by at turn number 1. Dark clouds in the distance, blowing in from the coast.
Maybe that's what Tsunoda's waiting for, another sprinkling of rain. It does look quite dark overhead.
So the car's taking its penalty.
Got to wait 5 seconds before touching the car. Gasly responds.
Yeah, Tsunoda can only be doing that, hoping for a weather change. If he feels that he can stay out there. Lap times are not too bad, considering the age of the tyres.
Watch George Russell here. He's going to have the tyres up to temperature. And Gasly will have to chop across here, do some quick work. So Sainz has gone through. That 5-second penalty has cost Gasly track position. The Ferrari driver has moved past him. And there's going to be a lot of momentum here for George Russell, but it might be flat, but you've got a pretty thin ribbon of tarmac directly behind Pierre Gasly, and with all the momentum you like, Russell can't use it, and that is terrific direction change there. Gasly needed to stay ahead, and he did.
You know, when 2 ex-drivers, if I can call you that, Jolyon, are saying nothing when cars are really close at high speed, and one of the section that I call the scary section, you know it's because you know, anything could happen here.
In the slipstream, is bumpy as well over those crests, flat out through 4, 5 and 6. Russell right in the slipstream, dirty air, trying to find a way past Gasly. The car's darting around. George was right up to the grass on the entry as well to turn 7. That was very tight, but it's so difficult to pass there as well.
Okay, more action on the main straight, and that was a simple pass for Carlos Sainz to get past Yuki Tsunoda. So AlphaTauri have taken a gamble here. They've waited for the weather to change. Does the weather change is the question. Yuki Tsunoda continuing to circulate out there, but you could see the difference between old tyres and new. It was slam dunk for Carlos Sainz, now P4.
Yeah, I wonder if Alonso's doing the same, hanging out there, just waiting to see if the weather does become an opportunity to what would effectively be a free stop. If he pits now, then he'll find himself out behind Perez again.
Not miles away from Max, is he? 14 seconds back. Alonso's having a brilliant drive. He will pit and he will cover off Carlos Sainz. Now Sainz has got clear of Tsunoda. They don't want to lose that potential podium, but he's actually done a cracking drive here, Fernando Alonso.
Oh, he's got potential.
The most experienced Formula One driver in history is now into the pits for Aston Martin, trying to return to the podium today. The driver who started 3rd in the championship.
Front left, it's an issue.
It's a slow stop, and that is really, really tough stuff for Alonso, whose chance of putting pressure on Perez disappears. And Carlos Sainz goes through. The Spanish driver, Carlos Sainz, who hasn't been on the podium all season long, goes through, and so does Tsunoda, as the podium chances disappear for Fernando Alonso.
It looked like there was a gun issue.
This is Lando Norris making the pass on Hülkenberg. Car 4 getting past car 27.
Synchronized DRS closing as the rear wings close the slot gap and regenerate the downforce.
This is Oscar Piastri further back, and this was him getting past Zhou Guanyu, who offered the defensive move but was unable to stop the Australian driver getting past.
Verstappen's pitting in now. There's nothing else for him to do. He's waited as long as he needs to, and he'll cover off the lead of the race. For Alonso, I mean, the front left, that was a horrible pit stop for Aston Martin. They've generally been pretty hot on their stops so far this year. He's just cleared Yuki Tsunoda, and he's not out of this for a podium, but he's now got to go attacking on Sainz. He'll be very thankful that Gasly had that 5-second penalty. Otherwise, that would have been another car ahead there. And he's going to have to fight for 3rd place. Sainz is on an older soft tyre because he pitted about 5 laps ago now. 7 laps ago, in fact. So once he's got fresher tyres, he's got to go charging after his compatriot.
I think it's a scrub set of tyres that went on Verstappen, but certainly fresher. So interesting to see whether he has a stab at the fastest lap.
So Verstappen, Perez, and the main change in the last stint of the race, Carlos Sainz, who aggressively went very early for the new tyres. And Ferrari put the pressure on Aston Martin. They had the slow stop, and Sainz has waited all year long to climb on a Formula One podium. He's had a top 3 finish in an Austrian sprint race, but not a Formula One podium so far this year. And he is looking today for his 16th in the championship.
George Russell up to 7th place on his long stint on hard tyres.
That'll be a change in position.
Rain in 15 minutes, only light.
Gasly gets past his former teammate. Gasly up to P5 as Tsunoda locked up at turn 10.
Alonso, almost said Verstappen there, Alonso continues to eat into the gap to Sainz. So these two are going to go racing pretty soon.
He's going to be so determined to pass Sainz. Hasn't had a podium since Montreal. That car, I mean, he was barely off the podium for the first races up until then. But here we go, Sainz in the Ferrari. Alonso just behind. There's a podium up for grabs. Sainz hasn't had a podium yet this year. He's been very consistent. His best result is a 4th place. This would be big for Carlos Sainz on a tricky day for Ferrari with the other car.
Yeah, Alonso just took 1.2 seconds out of Sainz in the last lap. So just trying to see on tyres, they're both fresh sets of soft tyres, so there's not an offset. This is just pure performance.
Fernando Alonso knows how to get past Carlos Sainz at Tarzan Corner because he did it on the very last lap in 2021 into turn 1. So this battle resumes between these two. And it's going to be fascinating. There's always a healthy amount of respect from Carlos Sainz to his childhood hero, but I think the elbows are about to come out now.
Yeah, there's no friends on the racetrack. It's all about performance, and yeah, it's never a good time to be overtaken, but the last lap it particularly hurts.
Verstappen setting the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, and it was a 1:13.9 compared to Sergio Perez's 1:14.7 last time around. Let's do battle with Ferrari and Aston Martin, with Carlos Sainz hanging on to third place at the moment, but Alonso wants it back, and he's prepared to go aggressively to the inside, and he'll reclaim the place. Fernando Alonso forgets all about that difficult pit stop and roars on by to P3.
He has got so much pace in the car today. He was aggressive as well. Sainz kind of covered the inside, but there was still space for a Spaniard on the inside of him, and Fernando took that chance. He was so committed to the pass, and he's got just a lot of pace in that car. He was flying up to the back of the Ferrari, and he's through at the first attempt.
Yeah, took advantage of the DRS, and sorry, we were on board with George Russell. They're taking advantage of the DRS, and then contact as. Who was that?
Sonoda. That was Sonoda on the apex, making contact with George Russell.
So was that bodywork we saw, was that coming off Sonoda's car?
This is Albon now. We go back to trackside rather than the replay. That's Albon trying to get through and take 7th position side by side. These two drivers go into turn 11. Sonoda stays ahead. He is really aggressively defending here.
Sonoda's in trouble, though, in this race. He was running so well up in 8th place, and he's now 7th, but all of those guys behind are pitted, and they're going way quicker. So even Russell on his old hards was coming through. We jump on board with Albon, and he's going to get DRS, and this will be an easy one for him.
Albon pulls out of the slipstream, takes the position. He's up to 7th. AlphaTauri's gamble on the weather changing has not worked.
Yeah, he's going to pit eventually and come out outside of the points.
You can see him sliding through the apex of turn 1. He's just got no grip at all. Staying out for so long on a soft tyre from such a good position. I mean, it's a pretty bizarre call, actually, from AlphaTauri, to be honest. They barely scored points this year, and they might have just thrown away a huge chance.
Yeah, it's not what you call strategic, it's more what you call desperate.
Yeah, they tried to go, they gambled what they had, and they're going to end up with nothing. And all the while that you see now, Ocon and Norris can't fight their way by.
Something got damaged. Check me. Copy.
Sonoda speaking to his team, but they will know without an intervention from the weather, they've got no opportunity. It was Russell going around the outside on the hard tyres. We're going to get a really intriguing battle with Russell, Albon, Ocon and Norris. And then Hamilton, if things go the way we expect them to, will drop Yuki Tsunoda out of the points, and a great drive will go unrewarded. Frustration for AlphaTauri, who are having a management change next year.
So we are expecting rain around 10 laps from the end, Max, some of which could be pretty heavy.
So thanks for your immaculate drive so far, but lots more skill required.
Absolutely. Well, that could turn this race on its head.
He's only got 8 seconds to his teammate. He's only got 12 seconds to Alonso. He's not run away with this one like he has in previous races.
I wonder if that's just a case of, you know, they're not pushing the engine as hard. They've had that conversation, do the least that we can to win this race, but they may rue that if it does suddenly rain, and as we saw, depending where it does rain, then decide whether you make the pits or not.
Yeah, the strategy implications of a bit of rain towards the end. We saw it with Lando Norris, who we're riding on board with now. In Sochi, famously, a couple of years ago, lost the race in the last moment.
Well, here's an opportunity that's going to close down immediately. Lewis Hamilton was sniffing an opportunist move there up against Lando Norris, who wasn't able to get past Yuki Tsunoda. But that won't be the case for too long. Where you clear the car here is very important, because look at the gap that Ocon's been able to pull on this lap, having got past in 8th place. Hamilton and Norris now trying to get past Tsunoda. There goes Norris, and Hamilton's going to have to wait. But will he have better traction, go the long way round? And he will. So Tsunoda's gamble doesn't pay off with the AlphaTauri team. Norris is up to 9th, P10 for Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, that was great. Hamilton understanding exactly who he's racing, what length, you know, what mileage does he have on his tyres, because you wouldn't think to try and go around the outside there if you were like for like.
when the rain comes, it'll be heavier than the start of the race.
When the rain comes.
It's game on. It's game on until the end, and Fernando Alonso has given himself a chance in this race. He's still there. He's within a pit stop, so he is actually 20 seconds back from Verstappen. He's 10 seconds off Perez, who's 10 seconds off the race lead. But he's given himself a chance to still medal for the win, and that's where he was in Monaco, where Aston Martin actually did 2 pit stops in 2 laps, and they could have won that from this sort of position. He just comes through and does the fastest lap. Heavy rain still to come, big implications for strategy and also just for the drivers keeping it on the track. Chance of safety car, it is all up for grabs still.
Russell versus Albon. This is for 6th position, or it was, because Albon has just driven around the side of his good friend and taken 6th place. Alex Albon on for his best day in Formula One so far this season. He is resurgent in that Williams.
Yeah, working well, and although Russell, hard tire decision, has brought him back into the points, but he just doesn't have the pace in the car right now.
Hamilton has cleared Norris as well for 9th place, so he made that pass around the outside of Tsunoda, had to do it first time, and here we go, replay of Lewis Hamilton coming past the outside of Norris.
Outside line once again, so much overtaking today as Hamilton fights past his old team. Good respect given by both drivers as he tries the outside move to gain another position. That is the very heavy rain that is currently over the North Sea. By the time that it reaches the beaches, well, it might be about now, because we're looking at a grandstand where it's poncho watch once again, and they're going up, they're going on, and the rain has arrived at Zandvoort once more.
It is first telltale signs on our window, looking out the commentary box. And if it is correct in the prediction, heavier rain, then there will be no choice. Intermediates for everyone.
Is it going to be like extreme tire or inter?
Difficult to say at the moment, I guess.
Usually if you would get extreme wet conditions, you would end up in a safety car situation pretty quickly. So it's more likely to lean towards the Inter.
Absolutely, and the drivers are not enjoying the full wet. It's literally, as you say, it's put it on because you've got no other choice. Inter would be the preferred if there's not too much standing water.
Yeah, I think Max just trying to calculate how much water they're expecting really with the question. They won't fit the extreme wet, I'm sure of that, because the performance just drops away so quickly when you do.
You know, one thing that's surprising, just when we look at the ponchos, they tend to be predominantly blue or see-through. You would have thought here they would do them in orange.
Right, we'll get you a
There's
poncho
a gap in the
business.
market.
Yeah, right, we're going to set that business up at the end of the Grand Prix because the rain, the drivers are being told, is heavy and imminent out there, and Carlos Sainz is weaving all over the road now to try and keep Pierre Gasly behind, and Gasly, who had the 5-second penalty, is trying to go the long way round and being given an elbow from Sainz, who says, you stay behind. I've had enough laps of looking at the rear of your car. Strong defence with the weather set to change once again in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Yeah, he's not so strong in this phase of the race, is he, Sainz? He was on the back of Gasly for the whole last stint. Gasly's actually on a new set of softs. Sainz is on a scrub set, so maybe there's a bit of difference there, but that's going to go on for the next few laps. Probably all change when the rain falls.
Yeah, well, Hamilton running behind his teammate Russell.
That is going to be Ocon being passed by Lewis Hamilton, who then has his teammate directly ahead. That was down to Tarzan corner. Flurry of overtaking, and yet we could get the race decided in the next stint as Gasly giving Alpine something to smile about when they've been through so much turmoil, when they've gone through so many management changes. Gasly on the attack this weekend.
Yeah, when these drivers go into the Grand Prix, they don't know who the team principal is going to be by the end of it.
Albon is on that medium tyre in 6th. He's ahead of Russell on the hard.
Okay, so this rain is 2 minutes away. Duration is about 50 minutes.
Wow.
That's rain then, that's rain, no doubt about it, and all the radio chatter is fairly well aligned on when it's coming. It is imminent, maybe this lap, maybe next. There's not a huge amount of spots of rain on our window at the moment, but the ponchos are most definitely on in preparation for it.
Any second now, we're expecting the Dutch Grand Prix to turn into a wet contest once again. There's no need for anything to turn into a battle between Hamilton and Russell here. Old hard tyres!
Oh, he put a wheel on the grass.
And we all took a step back in the commentary box, and I can't believe that George Russell's still in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Save of the century.
How did he keep that? Wow, that was huge.
That could have been an almighty crash. That would have been straight into the gravel, into the Tech Pro, and racing drivers' instincts keep him in the race.
I mean, Hamilton had quite the view there, didn't he? Coming into the fastest corner of the circuit. Now he goes around his teammate and up into 7th. Lewis is having a decent Sunday, but George Russell's heart rate just would have gone through the roof.
Yeah, I would love to see that again, because it's almost like I imagine he'd be looking in the mirror and then just go unsighted as he approached the corner.
This is a much better run for Pierre Gasly this time. It's a position improved for Pierre Gasly. Another driver to forget about the slow pit stop. That was for a penalty there for the Alpine driver, and he gets past Carlos Sainz. And despite all of this, they're going to have to deal with the rain, which all the teams believe is coming. Looks like it's just about to hit the beach.
Well, no surprise that when you have a circuit with bank corners, you do have options as to whether you take the shallow line or the wide line, and it's given us some great overtaking.
Yeah, it has been, even in the dry, it's been a fantastic place to go racing, but the end of the Dutch Grand Prix will not be dry. Big raindrops on the commentary box window as we review this incredible moment with George Russell.
Oh, he gets well onto the grass. That left rear drops fully onto it. He was so close when he was racing.
So George, that's part from a much different tyre strategy to him.
I wanted to hear the commentary following that move.
Yeah, okay, changing it. Here comes the rain, and it's Sergio Perez who's come in, but it's a slow stop.
Yeah, he obviously came in and didn't give the team the warning, so that's the driver who's made that call. He's gone, right, this is an opportunity, and the rain is bucketing down.
Well, this is going to change it. It's all about keeping it on the road once again for the drivers. This is going to be tough even on the intermediate tyre that they surely will all elect to change onto.
So this is like the first lap once again. Gasly has pitted, Sainz has pitted, Alonso did not, Verstappen did not. They're now out in really quite wet conditions.
Then Verstappen is the turn...
No, it's too dry here. Wait a second.
So Verstappen turned the stop down.
Yeah.
He turned the stop down, and now he's trying to keep it on the road. When he was chasing a ninth Grand Prix victory in a row, it is hammering down at Zandvoort. Verstappen, Alonso, then Albon. You've got Perez on the intermediate tyre, and you've got Ocon trying to keep it out there as well.
He's coming in now.
This would be a very good time to pit.
Okay. He's made it round. He's made it round, and that would have been some tour of the circuit for him on completely the wrong tyre.
Well, Perez had such a slow stop as well, didn't he? Which gives Max a little bit more leeway to make that decision. That's a very good stop for Verstappen. Look how much the rain is coming down.
But Perez, we're looking now at the cars coming through. Who's going to make it out ahead? Verstappen continues on there. He's made it out. He's going to maintain the lead. Alonso's coming to the pits as well. Alex Albon is dropping down. Is he out there on the medium tyre? Has he stopped yet?
So I think Alonso may well have just jumped Sergio Perez, has he?
Yeah, he's
This is going to be very, very heavy rain, Esteban. Massive.
Yeah, he stayed out that extra lap along with Verstappen.
So Perez up to second. It's about keeping it on the road. You've just got to keep it on the road at this stage, because if it comes down in the way that the teams are expecting, we will surely have to neutralise the race. But that's race control's call. Verstappen, Perez, Alonso, Gasly and Sainz, the top 5. Now Alex Albon does pit for Williams, and Lewis Hamilton goes through up to 6th position. Albon going out there, that's cost him. That's Lando Norris about to take another place away. A brilliant drive for Albon, undone by a late call for intermediate tyres, and Russell is closing in as well.
There's a lot going on here, and my eyes are maybe not as young and sharp as they were, but did Lawson overtake Verstappen and then get repassed by him?
Yeah, they were fighting at this stage. They're side by side in really wet conditions where you are completely committed. It's usually flat in the dry. George Russell goes through a corner that he very nearly went off at a few moments ago. Albon down to 9th. Piastri completes the point scorers. 10 to go in the Dutch Grand Prix.
So a bit like the first lap, staying out for the extra lap on the slicks just didn't work. Albon's lost 3 places. Alonso didn't jump Perez, even with Perez's slow stop, but he did manage to at least stay in 3rd.
Ocon went full wet. Ocon tried to go to the full wet tyre. If it goes to full wet conditions, they tend to throw a safety car out.
This is the worst decision, guys.
Yellow flag in sector 1, and off the road goes Sergio Perez in the monsoon conditions now. Surely it can't be long until we throw a safety car at this one, because they'll be struggling to keep it on the road. They'll be aquaplaning off. Alonso is up to second place.
Yeah, this will now be difficult on those intermediates, so that worst decision, if they don't throw a safety car, could well see him take chunks of time out of these other runners.
It is nearly impossible to keep a Formula One car on the road in these conditions, and race control allow the race to continue at the moment, and this is the moment that cost Perez P2.
He's the only man that's actually been off, though, and it's a double front lock. Then in the runoff area, there's no grip at all, and he slithers round, and you can just see the Aston Martin come through behind. Huge spray. He's just double front locked as he's hit the brakes. That was something we saw a lot in the rain yesterday.
And the barrier, but just the lightest of touches.
Let's see it again. Let's go back to live. Oh, they're snaking off the road. Zhou Guanyu has gone into the Tech Pro. His teammate has gone off, and the virtual safety car is out as we go into the pits to change onto full wet tyres. In we come with Max Verstappen, full wet tyres. It's Zhou is okay, I'm hearing. He's gone off. He's reported he's all right, but we are heading into red flag territory now.
Yeah, that's going to be it now. It's absolutely hosing down. It's aquaplane territory in the first corner. Zhou is off and okay. There's about to be a red flag, surely.
They put Verstappen on the wet tyres. There is Zhou Guanyu, who was reported on the radio. He is all right. He slithered off the road at turn number 1, but this would be hard to keep on the road. Perez has come into the pits as well. Perez comes in. That will elevate Gasly to the podium. We continue to circulate, but it will be tough to keep it on the road in these conditions, and we eventually get to the red flag, but after Perez has given up track position. Verstappen, Alonso, Gasly now on the podium. The red flag is out, and we stop things on lap 64.
It will go back a lap for Perez, so he will go back to third place, I believe, because the red flag was flown as he was in the pits, and there's no way to establish an order there. So I think
Norris was in there as well. So was Russell, so was Albon, but they weren't joking when they said it was going to be intense. All the teams knew this was coming, but even now, this is extraordinary stuff. We'll get a clarification on the restart order from race control, but the red light is out, and Perez finds himself in 6th place on our suspended race order. We have seen clarifications for restarts in the past. It is chucking it down out there. Don't be surprised if anyone loses it trying to come back to the pits. The clearance of the water, Formula One cars run so close to the ground that sometimes you can aquaplane off in these conditions.
So yeah, of course I assume that we're not going to restart this when I said it will go back for the result, but there is just a stoppage for now, so there is a chance to have a restart. But just looking at the amount of rain and the intensity that we're expected to continue, it would surprise me if there's a way to restart this and they don't call this a Grand Prix, but we'll wait and see.
So the awnings will come out. It's not a farmer's market, it's the delayed Dutch Grand Prix, and there's Lando Norris in 7th. And action at the start thanks to the rain. Brilliant overtaking in the middle, then some more rain at the end. It has been a Grand Prix to savour. Verstappen crucially at the front of the field still when we suspended things, and this heavy rain is set in. It is worth saying, Jolyon, you're quite right to say that this is going to last for a long time. The FIA have been really clear in the last few years about restarting it if they can, and we still have the window of 3 hours. Oh, that was a big hit for Zhou Guanyu.
It was aquaplane territory for Zhou, and actually his teammate went off just behind, showing that really it was just undrivable. They were on intermediates. The full wet would have been the right decision, actually, as Esteban Ocon. He wasn't too happy to be on it at the time, but now in this, I mean...
Driver's eye view, once that front axle's locked, and then it's almost like the runoff area. The tarmac there is almost more slick than the actual race tarmac itself. And, well, disappointing in what was showing some good opportunity. So, let's assume they don't restart. Who's that there? That was Hamilton. Let's assume they don't restart. Winners and losers. Well, Hamilton's got himself, having spent most of the day out of the points. He's up in 5th place. Yeah, look at that lock-up again. And you can definitely consider him one of the rain maestros. But highlighting what you're saying there, Jolyon, one sure, and out of condition when you're in the wrong tyre with such heavy rain. You're a passenger a lot of the time.
And that's why it's actually such a tough call. Red Bull, with Perez now down in 6th, they look a little bit silly because they didn't need to. They pitted him seconds before the red flag was flown. But even at VSC
I think you did
speed,
predict it as well. Who was shouting out there's going to be a red flag? Was it you, Alex? Or?
Yeah, just purely from what we've seen this weekend, if it was going to be full wet intensity, which all the teams knew because they were watching the weather radar, we were always going to suspend the race. That was always going to happen.
but even under virtual safety car conditions, there was a yellow flag, I think, when Hamilton was went off, or at least there was a slippery surface. Maybe it was just that was out. But certainly he wasn't pushing coming into the first corner, Lewis. But when it's aquaplaning conditions and you're on an intermediate, even at low speed, you could just put it in the wall, you could put it off, and others were all flying off there at turn one. So Red Bull just took no risks with it. And if we get going again, then it has cost Sergio Perez a good 3 places. He cost himself the one to Fernando Alonso.
So if it is possible to restart the race inside the 3-hour window, the modern precedent is to always try and restart it. But it is a 3-hour window from the start of the race. The clock is suspended with 31 minutes of racing still allowed as per the Grand Prix total. That is 2 hours for the total of the race. Esteban Ocon doesn't like the decision still.
I was going to say, you don't need to speak French, or certainly can't read his lips, but you can tell from his body language he is not happy.
Gasly, his teammate, is up into 3rd place as it stands. What a drive from him today.
So a call for race control to make. Everyone in the grandstands standing up. They're still, the DJ's kicked off again now. So they're all dancing along, singing in the rain, as we have a massive discussion going on there.
So Ocon there, race engineer Josh Peckett is leaning in, and they're having quite a frank discussion, it looks like. We heard on the radio Ocon wasn't happy with the decision. I cannot believe he's sitting there thinking to go on the full wets was the bad call, given just 1 or 2 laps later it suddenly looked like a good move and others were pitting for that tyre. Did he want to pit earlier? Was he wanting to come in straight away for the inters and they delayed it for 1 lap, and that's what's cost him, because he has lost a fair amount of ground in that pit stop phase. He was ahead of Norris.
And the heaviest part of the rain has passed, and should be clear for 10-20 minutes, and then some more could come later.
It's been drying quite quickly this weekend so far. The track, Logan Sargent's still out there.
Yeah, he's been out there with these thoughts, and he's now out there with an ocean full of rain.
Surprised he didn't try and hitch a lift back in one of the course vehicles, or at least head to the beach. Well, maybe not the beach, but somewhere where he could watch a bit more of the action, television.
I think he just wants to get away from it, doesn't he, at this point? He crashed many laps ago now, 50 laps ago. Sargent was out of the race.
Right, that poncho business you were thinking about, DC, I'm in.
Look at the damage, yeah, absolutely. Sorry, there's damage on the back, the little rear flap of Perez's car. So that must have been when he backed it into the barrier at turn 1.
Yeah, it wasn't huge contact, was it?
No.
Fairly square on there. It's a rear crash structure there that they're having a look at.
So just coming back to what you're saying there, Alex, what percentage do you want in this new orange poncho company that we're starting?
You see, look, almost everyone there.
Clear, where they're missing.
Making money hand over fist. The order for the restart has just come through, and it is the order, I believe, from the lap before. So it's Verstappen, then Alonso, then Perez, then Gasly. Then you move to Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, George Russell, then you're into Alex Albon and Oscar Piastri. So we do count back to before things were neutralised. So the order for the restart, just like it would be if we called it on lap 65, the result would go back to lap 63. And that's where we would take our Grand Prix finishing from, but we've been told order for the restart.
Yeah, I think that's the sensible thing as well. It's tough to punish the team that comes in for the full wets in the monsoon conditions, isn't it? So Perez will be the big move there, back up to the top 3 for the restart. He will be behind Alonso still. So Alonso still gains. He'll split the Red Bulls. Still brightening up slightly outside the commentary box now, but there's a lot of water on the circuit. That came down at a deluge, didn't it?
Well, the teams worked really well with the drivers. They were warning them a long way off. They were all across it. They were all on the same page. We're going to have a Tech Pro looked at as well down there because Jolyon went in quite hard into turn one. Got to say, I've got a lot of sympathy for him after he exited the race in that fashion because it was going to happen to someone. It's just slightly odd that we waited until someone went off because with that level of water, it was always going to happen to one of our remaining drivers.
It just suddenly it came down so quickly, though. Perez did it the lap before and managed to get going again. And at that point, it looked tough but drivable. But with the rain still falling, then it was Joe off. Hamilton had a skip through the gravel. Bottas had been off to that runoff area as well. It was really turn one that was catching all the drivers out.
We just talk about the casualness of Gianpiero Lambiase on the radio to Max Verstappen saying now would be a good time to pit when you are one opposite lock moment like we saw from George Russell away from losing your home Grand Prix and a history-making moment in Formula One. And it's like they were nattering to each other at FP1.
Yeah, they're really on a level, aren't they, Max and GP? They're really, sometimes it's almost needly between them. I think they've got such a deep understanding that they can have like a brotherly bicker with each other. And it was almost just a little bit sarky, wasn't it? Verstappen didn't want to come in the first lap, and then GP just saying, I think I would advise it this time, as it's absolutely chucking it down.
The red flag is flying around Zandvoort circuit, a soaked Zandvoort circuit. We're on lap 65 of 72. Race control expect there to be a restart. Gives us a chance to pause in the commentary box and bring in a man who's been sending me weather radar rather kindly all race long. Sam Collins, what have you made of things?
It's been fun, hasn't it? There's been an awful lot to look at, an awful lot to dive into, but I'm going to start off with a little weather report. I think race control have done exactly the right thing to red flag this race. You mentioned earlier, Alex, we've got this 3-hour window to get the race finished by. Well, we've got plenty of time to get the race done by because everything was fairly, went fairly smoothly so far. Looking at the weather radar, there is a big gap in the weather coming up, but behind it there is some more pretty heavy rain coming in. As we see Yuki Tsunoda going through, guys.
Okay, so this is Yuki Tsunoda heading to turn number 1, and Tsunoda is going to go straight on by, is the assumption. Yeah, through the gravel trap as well. Bit of opposite lock, and he kept it out of the barrier. Jolyon was the driver who wasn't able to do that. We saw Lewis Hamilton off as well, of course, a wet weather master, but that's Jolyon trying to stay away from the rubbered-in racing line. You can see the car off ahead, and that's a big hit into the Tech Pro. So easy for that to happen. And that is Yuki Tsunoda going wide. We're seeing it in high motion as he bounces through the gravel, and moments later, that is going to be the Alfa Romeo hitting the Tech Pro and taking him out of the race, bringing out the red flag. There you go. There is the moment of impact.
Yeah, and he's done his job exceptionally well, and he's learned from Daniel Ricciardo's error in free practice, got his hands off the steering wheel. And here we see the replay of Perez here. Running behind, was that Fernando Alonso once he'd thrown the...
Yeah, so the virtual safety car is out, and Perez finding himself behind Fernando Alonso after the lap longer just didn't work. The lap longer was never going to work. They knew it was going to be intense rain. And we're just seeing this. That was him coming into the pits for the full wets.
Yeah, and that was that decision to come in for the full... And he hit the pit wall. There you can see actually the amount of aquaplaning as he came in there, and as someone who has hit the pit wall in my career, it's easily done.
Sam, sorry, interrupting you there with a slew of replays.
No worries. I mean, that actually replay was going to bring me to a point that I was going to make. So any damage that cars have suffered during the race can be repaired without penalty underneath a red flag. So if Sergio Perez has caused damage to his right front corner by hitting the pit wall there, the Red Bull team can replace that entire corner under the red flag. And the point is, they are going to have time to do that, because after the Baku Grand Prix earlier in the year, the red flag restart procedure was revised. So if there is a restart, you're going to get a 10-minute signal, a 5-minute signal, a 3-minute signal, 2-minute, 1 minute, and then you're going to get a green light from the pit lane. Now, that's the point where the teams will be told whether the restart of this race, and I'm pretty sure we are going to get a restart, is going to be a standing start or a rolling start. Teams have free choice of tyres, but they will have to go onto a treaded tyre in this situation because it's not going to be dry. So you are going to see work being done on some of the cars, and you're also going to see those signals counting down. So we do have a bit of time to unpack things, have a think about things, and get going. And if you're of the Sergio Perez or perhaps David Coulthard persuasion, you can replace the damage that's been done by driving into the pit wall, guys.
That's the sort of joke you can only make when you're at the Media and Technology Centre.
Let me at him. Yeah, well, luckily for Checo, he's still very much in this Grand Prix. And, well, one man who isn't, we can see it on the camera, Logan Sargent, reflecting on the highs and lows of Formula One, having done a brilliant job to get through into the final part of qualifying. 2 crashes this weekend, definitely a little, bad mark in the school report.
Yeah, we had a cutaway whilst Sam was talking to us there, where they had Liam Lawson with the helmet off, and he's got his eyes wide open at what he's seen. What a weekend he has had. It has been incredible stuff for the guy on Grand Prix debut.
Yeah, he only came here for the waffles, and he ended up making his Grand Prix debut.
What conditions for him. I mean, it's been a completely bonkers race, really, with the chaotic start. Fairly more run-of-the-mill in the middle, but now we're waiting with another deluge. Aquaplaning conditions. He's had everything in the space of 2 days.
It's great to see the spirit of the crowd, no one looking miserable when they've got absolutely every reason to, standing out there in that torrential downpour.
It's brilliant. The DJ's pumping out the tunes again. There's a full-on sing-along.
Just a thought as well, this stage in the day, those who've got a beer in their hand, they're probably thinking, this is great, I'm getting, my drink's getting topped up.
It is still, let's look, there was a river running down the main straight a few moments ago, so that's gone. So it is easing off out there. And it's still going to take a while to clear. Race suspended, the restart order. Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Sergio Perez, then Pierre Gasly, and then we get to Carlos Sainz. That will be the restart order after the intervention of the red flag in these conditions.
I can almost see a little bit of blue sky poking through. Almost.
Yeah, you're right. It's getting bright.
It's brightening up.
It's still raining.
Yeah, it's raining sideways outside the window, but in the distance, it's looking terrific. Yeah. So stay with us. Stay with us. Oh, it all at the start and just before the red flag. Total chaos out there. And the red flag interrupting the Dutch Grand Prix. I'm informed by our statistician, for the first time in its history, this is the 33rd running of the race. And they will be given the chance to pick the tyres for the restart. And we do have a 3-hour window in which to run the race. So that is the sight of Adrian Newey and Christian Horner looking on. We've seen a lot in their long careers, but this has been a standout race in a season. I mean, Verstappen's still at the front of it, but they're chucking a lot at him today to make this Formula One history.
Yeah, it's nice to see him work, though, isn't it? In a normal dry race, he's gone. And even if Alonso was a little bit closer and Perez was a little bit closer than we've seen, he was still having to be kept on his toes, but he felt like he was never under any serious pressure, even with the strategy not being perfect for him on the opening lap. But this is something else. This is what amazes me about Max, is so many things could have gone wrong for him this year. Monaco leading, slicks in the damp, and then they're really wet, and he manages to win. He seems to be able to ride everything.
Yeah, there's moments, isn't there, in these exceptional drivers, there's moments in their career where they just don't seem to do any wrong. They can't seem to get it wrong. And you've got to assume he's closer to the edge of adhesion because he's going quicker than his teammate. So that makes it even more remarkable.
Yeah, it could have been Verstappen going off in a different world than not Perez at the first corner. You know, the conditions were so bad, but it just wouldn't have been, would it? He's just riding, he's driving with that level of skill at the moment, and it's just that extra 1% where he's able to just see things ahead of time, find the drier parts. If it does get out of shape, he can somehow catch it and not clatter the barriers. He even tapped the barriers in that Monaco race, but not with enough force to do some damage.
Well, Perez, who very nearly ripped the front right off coming into the pits, got away with that wall tap, and he will resume in 3rd place.
Yeah, talk about getting his 9 lives of opportunity to go into a barrier and hit a pit wall and still be in the game is very, very fortunate. And he needs a result, doesn't he? He needs an opportunity to try and see in the closing laps if he can get to the podium.
There are still smiles on faces. The crowd have had to withstand all the conditions. And it'll probably be, in an hour's time, absolutely glorious out there again. But it is still hammering down outside the commentary box window.
Nah, look at it. The sun's poking through. The North Sea reflecting the beautiful sunshine out there. That's blowing towards us, isn't it? The south side. It's going to be beach weather in no time.
Okay.
You can go in first.
Yeah.
You turn blue instantly. We'll just be spectators.
Okay, a little bit of changes going down there. Anticipating the conditions, Oscar Piastri, make sure he's got the right visor and checking things with the hands device. We'll send it to the Media and Technology Centre, and F1TV's technical analyst Sam Collins is very close to telling us a few things, I'm being told. At least I was being told, and now I'm in no man's land with this throw. Terrific, it's been that sort of day. There's Yuki Tsunoda. They were gambling on the rain, it just didn't hit at the right moment. Tsunoda in the order in 12th position. Was hoping for some points, and if that had been 10 minutes earlier, it might have been inspired, but it's fine margins in Formula One. Hulkenberg has got a brand new contract as well as that funky hairdo. And now, I am reliably assured, we are going to throw to Sam Collins.
Yeah, I'm here, ready and waiting, guys. I thought it'd be worth taking a look at how we ended up in this situation, as the sun very definitely is starting to shine on that beach, and the beach there is lovely at Zandvoort. All along that coast is great. This is the tyre strategy page that I spent an awful lot of time looking at. Just to give you a breakdown on this page, on the left-hand side of the page here, you can see all of the tyres available to all drivers, how old they are, what's left, and there's a few interesting points to make here. Only a few drivers have got new sets of intermediates available for them, and of course Charles Leclerc's not in this Grand Prix anymore, so there's only 4 or 5 drivers there who have new sets of intermediates available. All of those other sets of tyres, they are available to the drivers, but they are worn. So those with new sets, Esteban Ocon in particular, may have a little bit of an advantage. The other point I want to make here is, as you can see, the order on this screen is the order of the race when it all came to a stop, but it doesn't include certain pit stops. So you take a look at Sergio Perez in 6th on this screen. You can see here he doesn't have a set of wet tyres on his screen, and that's because he never left the pits. Therefore, those wet tyres are not considered to have been used, even though he's bolted them onto the car and carried on a little bit down the road. But there's an interesting journey to reach this, which has been a really chaotic Grand Prix from strategy points of view. We had this first bucketing down of rain where everybody, or almost everybody, put on the intermediate tyres. But look, there's a few notable exceptions. Alex Albon doing a brilliant job on a single set of soft tyres to go 44 laps all the way through that wet section, the safety car. A few other drivers, Oscar Piastri, he was looking fantastic at one point in this Grand Prix. He didn't stop, he got the right tyres, and if that second bout of rain that was expected around here had come in, Oscar Piastri would have come out of the pits looking really, really good, but it didn't come. The rain drifted away. A strange strategy from Mercedes on the face of it, pulling just 6 laps on the soft tyre with George Russell before selecting the hard tyre and carrying on all the way to this recent deluge. That, at first glance, didn't look to have worked. George Russell was down the bottom of the field, but as other people stopped round here, George Russell worked his way up back through the field, so that strategy started to come good. Then you've seen drivers like Esteban Ocon, those who have stopped around this period here. They were all running out of tyre life, but they knew the rain was going to come, so they had to push the cars particularly hard on the tyres. But it's quite surprising that we see Alex Albon and Oscar Piastri opt for the medium tyre at this point, when both drivers had brand new softs available to them. So I'm a bit mystified by the decisions of those teams, other than the fact that they may have not thought that that rain was going to come. If that was the case, I suggest they spend more time looking at the weather radar, because by that point it was really obvious we're going to get some serious rain towards the end of this Grand Prix. Then you got a few drivers who decided to put on a set of full wets towards the end of the Grand Prix, which will make the statisticians' hair fall out, because when you look at the number of pit stops Max Verstappen has made in this Grand Prix, look, 1 stop, 2 stops, 3 stops, 4 stops, and then a 5th stop just at the end. I can't remember the last person to win a Grand Prix after making a 5-stop strategy. Well, what I can say is I don't expect there to be any more pit stops in this last segment of the Grand Prix, because there's not many laps left. We're going to have a lap to restart the grid for behind the safety car, or a lap to the grid for standing start. Then we'll get going again with just a few racing laps, and it's going to be really close, hard fought, and I think it's all going to be done on intermediate tyres. But the last race, this is one for Jolyon Palmer, I think, the last race to be won with 5 or more pit stops. I don't know, Donington 1993, Jolyon, what do you reckon?
Yeah, go on, Jolyon, what do you reckon?
I don't think there was 5 pit stops wasn't it 4 pit stops for Senna in 93 in Donington? Alonso had 4 at the Spanish Grand Prix in 2013.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher had 4 in a French Grand Prix on the way to win. So we're looking for an improvement of 4. That's what we're looking for. We're under red flag conditions at the Dutch Grand Prix. While Sam was talking to you, we had Walking on Sunshine being played by the DJ. And producer Joe has suggested that Jenson Button might have stopped more in 2011 when he won the much-delayed Canadian Grand Prix. Lucky old DC on commentary for that one that day.
I wonder if that was pit stops or drive-through penalties that contributed to Buttons. I'd rebuttal that one, but we'll double check. I'm sure DC's got the answer in his pocket here.
Yeah, but I think it's fun for you to do some research just to see if the internet provides the right information. But yeah, it's now properly clear out there. Yeah. No more rain. Ponchos are still up, but people are, I think, we're probably not getting too far away from getting the 10-minute warning.
Yeah, it looks raceable, and it dries quickly here. And whoever that chap is, he's earning his money, isn't he, on the stage this weekend? Everyone is fairly adamant about Jenson Button.
Yeah, but these DJs, they go on for days without having a nap.
Yep, they certainly do. And, here we go, here's the sing-along. Can we broadcast this? Do we have the music license for this? Either way. If not, Stefano's going to have to write a check on Monday morning. What a day, what a weekend this man has. Liam Lawson, what a debut.
So now we have a break in the rain. It's stopping on next one expected in 15 minutes from now, 15 to 20 minutes.
What do you reckon's running through his head there as he's sat balaclava on? He's just been told we're going to go racing again. He's just been doing the laps, 16th position. He's ahead of Kevin Magnussen. And I mean, what is there in this for him? He's just got to hope, just drive around some more, learn a bit more. He's been adrift of the pack so far, but just drive around and hope that a few people run into trouble and 6 laps to go, you can actually salvage a point.
Yeah, I'm not sure he'd even be, well, he'd dream of a point, but I'm not sure he'd think that's a possibility. He'll be reflecting on how he feels he's done in this Grand Prix, because there's endless amounts of analysis the team could do, comparing like-for-like fuel and tyre age with his teammates, and there'll be an assessment made as to whether he's done a solid debut in terms of outright pace and performance, or could do better.
And he will be back in the car for the Italian Grand Prix next week, as Daniel Ricciardo continues to recover from that broken bone in his hand. So lots of suggestions from our producers that the more than 4 pit stops, Jenson Button, more than 5 pit stops we were at. Button in Canada in 2011 is a suggestion being fired to us in the comment box, wherever in the world you're watching. It is great to have your company for the 13th Grand Prix of the year. Stick with it, because everything that we've brought you so far might yet change. And the restart order, I'll remind you, will be Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, Sergio Perez, then Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz. For the top 5, Oscar Piastri watching on. We now see a bit of blue sky out of our commentary box window, and it's now a case of when race control think it's worth getting back underway. The fact that we've waited this long, the fact that we've been told there's a restart order, means that we are expecting a conclusion of all 72 laps of the Dutch Grand Prix.
What constitutes a pit stop?
We're deep into the red flag now, aren't we?
I feel like it's a pit stop is diving into the pit box for a change of tyres or a bit of fuel back in the day. Did Button do 5 pit stops, or was there some just drive? He definitely had a drive-through in there.
They had to go through the pit lane. Was there not an incident on the start-finish that sent them through the pit lane at one point?
Yeah, it was a race with a bit of everything in it, and that would chalk up one. But he technically came through 6 times in 2011. So 6 times he came through, but at least one of them was for a drive-through. Was there another drive-through? So was it 4 or 5 actual pit stops?
Is that the one he had the contact with his teammate?
That's right.
As well.
Down
so
the main straight.
Did he get damage to the wing?
I think that was that a drive-through for putting Hamilton in the wall? I think he got a drive-through for taking Alonso out.
He didn't get a penalty for Alonso. They were reviewing that afterwards. He got away with that one. Right, whilst we work that one out, let's show you the reason that we're under the red flag as the marshals have a dance in the pit lane. Let's have a look at the crash that brought out the red flag in the torrential conditions. So we were already at a virtual safety car at this point. Hamilton had gone off, Tsunoda went off, and then the biggest impact was Zhou Guanyu aquaplaning off the road into the Tech Pro, which did its job, dissipated the impact, and he is okay. He's all right, and that's important to say. This is the onboard view as we go down to turn number 1. There's the lockup, and there's the end of the race for the Chinese driver. And Alfa Romeo would have been dreaming of great points earlier on, but we can now hear from the man who's thankfully all right. Let's check in with Zhou Guanyu after that dramatic moment in the Dutch Grand Prix.
Joe, firstly, are you okay? Because that looked like a big hit.
Yeah, I was very shocked with what happened actually. Yeah. The rain dropped. I think I was the second car across that heavy rain behind Yuki, and aquaplaning straight away for halfway through the straight, and it was passengers instead. It was a 19G, so very lucky. Obviously walked away. No big issue at the minute.
And a really interesting race for you because it started off, you made all the right calls, you were in a great spot, and then you just fell backwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think we made a good choice to go inters, and we had a decent pace. But then the rain stopped when we were on slicks. We knew we don't have really the pace, try to stay top 10. But I think without the safety car was possible, but then with the safety car, I just couldn't make any progress. So yeah, in the end, that's what happens.
Then kind of overall, how do you feel about the weekend?
I think in the race we had good opportunities, and without obviously what happened in the last stint, I think we'll be getting some good positions. But just unlucky with what happened on turn 1. The spray was just way too much.
Thanks to Lawrence Barretto speaking to Zhou Guanyu there. Most important thing that he is okay. There could have been a chance now. We've had a break in the rain for a while. We're all waiting for the 10-minute signal, and we're waiting to get going, Jolyon.
Yeah, we could be going now. It looked like they're waiting for the next band of rain to come through and pass, but the race will only take about 10 minutes to get going. We're going to have 6 flying laps, 6 racing laps to sort this out. It's a minute and a half probably for a lap in these conditions. Drying quite quickly now.
Yeah, in terms of, as a fan watching this, it would be good to have a bit more information as to what is actually happening with the race director and the decision making. And if it is indeed because they think some heavy rain's coming, then let us know. Because right now it just makes it feel like well, maybe they're just enjoying the music like all the race fans. They've kind of zoned out and forgot that there's a Grand Prix to get restarted.
Well, they've had so much action already. You can forgive them for thinking that might be it. 65 laps, all on the line from the first lap until the last lap.
And we have a resumption time. The race will resume at 14 minutes past the hour, and that is your 10-minute warning. There is time to go and get a cup of tea, cup of coffee, whatever you need, maybe something stronger. It's entirely up to you, but either way, 10 minutes, and we're going to conclude the 13th Grand Prix of the season.
And I think it was just the one drive-through that Button served in 2011. After all of that, 5 legit pit stops, so producer Joe undoubtedly correct. And he got the drive-through not for the contact with Alonso or for Hamilton, but for speeding in the pit lane. As innocent as that. Still done today by Pierre Gasly. Yes. Bring it full circle.
There we go. So Gasly forgot about that penalty, didn't he? Put a great move on Carlos Sainz. And this, so in the old days, if we went back a decade, they would have called it on lap 65, and all the teams would be packing up right now. We'd have had the podium, we'd have been thinking about Monza. But in the last few years, there has been a shift in emphasis to make sure that we run all the laps if we have the time and it is safe to do so. So the order will be for the top 5, Max Verstappen, Fernando Alonso, then Sergio Perez, so they will physically move the cars in the pit lane to establish this. Then you have Pierre Gasly and Carlos Sainz.
And then formation lap and grid start.
Race director's discretion whether we have a standing start. Over to you, Neil Wittich.
Well, it depends on the conditions when we do get going in 10 more minutes. If there's no more rain, there's a few puddles offline as I'm looking out on the start-finish straight, the end of that, so that's actually off the back of the grid. Doesn't look too wet, so it'll just be whether the race director fancies standing everyone to a standing start, as we had the last couple of laps of Melbourne this year.
Is he a former racer? Has he done a bit of racing in his time? Or?
That's a good question. No, he came to us from the German Touring Car Championship. He was meant to be the deputy, was bumped up to the main job. He shared it last year, which is a very long answer to say I don't know, DC.
Fair enough.
The use of intermediate tyres is mandatory, so that is a message from race control. So everyone's got to go onto the inters. It does look like we're into intermediate territory. There's many questions about the use of the full wet tyre after this race. It's already been debated whether it really has any use anymore due to the fact that we don't tend to use it too much at all in race conditions. But the inters are mandated for the restart.
Yeah, that brings up a very good point, actually. They will take the full quantity of the full wet tyre for all the cars to have available, but very rarely do we ever see them actually delve into that selection of tyres.
I don't think they probably had to mandate the Inter. Can't imagine anyone would have gone for anything else at this point.
Yep, well, now the drivers have had a chance to catch their breath, talk to their team. We get ready for, well, it's a little sprint race.
Yeah, mini sprint race to decide the final order. Not as miniature as the resumption at the Australian Grand Prix, and you'll remember how that went. So hopefully it's a better version than that, because there was some real tears at the end of that race, certainly for Alpine, who came together.
Rolling start procedure is declared, so it's not going to be a standing start like Melbourne. That will give Verstappen particularly a little bit of leeway, though. He's not going to have a charging Fernando Alonso.
So that decision has been taken earlier than the race director needed to take it. That's an early call to say rolling start procedure. So the rule book allows the race director to go as long as the reconnaissance lap before making that call. He's gone early.
Yeah, so he's just locked it in, and that's probably partly because of the chaos from Melbourne as well. Add in the wet weather, 6 laps to go. He's just thought, easiest thing at this point, let's get the racing laps in. So it's going to be a safety car restart, effectively. And that is good news for Verstappen, because there's less variables there. When you're trying to get an F1 car off the line in wet conditions, it's so easy to just sit there and wheel spin and lose a hatful of positions, and then there's only 6 laps to make it up.
Okay, we had a retirement earlier in the race as the drivers go through their final checks and preparations. Let's hear and see Charles Leclerc's retirement, and we can hear from the Monegasque driver on his first retirement from a Grand Prix since earlier the year in Melbourne.
Hey Charles, commiserations. Can you just talk me through that really hectic opening part of the race for you?
Yeah, it was really tricky. We expected some drops, but not that much rain. Obviously, coming into the last corner, I saw there was a lot of rain, so decided to stop at the last minute. We lost a little bit of time at the pit stop, but overall it was a good operation for us because we gained more than what we lost. We just need to understand if obviously we could have optimized a bit better, having the guys ready early on, but it's raining now. Yeah, this race is crazy.
What happened? When did you pick up the damage to the floor, and just how difficult was the car to drive after that?
Extremely difficult. We lost more than 60 points, so it's a different category. So of course it was always going to be difficult after that.
All right, just sum up your frustrations just generally, because it could have been a great day. You know, the weather's played up, all things could have happened today.
Yeah, it could have, but with a Coulthard, there's not much to say. It's been a frustrating race. It's been an extremely difficult race with the balance, and the weekend overall has been very difficult. So yeah, just disappointing. I hope in Monza, with all the support that we can have a great race.
Hard luck, thank you.
Thanks to Lawrence Barretto speaking to Charles Leclerc there, who will just write this one out. The safety car will stay out for 2 laps to allow the drivers to ascertain the conditions. So it is a rolling start, Sam Collins, for the drivers to deal with.
Yeah, this is a really technical procedure, and it's really good the FIA have already told the teams the safety car's going to be out for 2 laps, because otherwise they'd have to look at the light panels to see the letters RS appear, and then the lights would go out on the safety car, it would come in, and the safety car would let the cars go. Max Verstappen will become the safety car essentially, or when that light panel changes, because it will still happen. At that point, he is allowed to drop more than 10 car lengths behind the safety car. Other cars, however, have to stay within 10 car lengths of the car in front of them. That's quite an important part. And then a really crucial part of a rolling start procedure here in Formula One is that no driver is allowed to overtake another car until they pass the line for the first time after the safety car has returned to the pit. So keep an eye on that one, because the line is quite a long way down that straight, and I suspect Max Verstappen will have gone at full beans long before that point.
Yeah, and that is what I imagine there'll be reminders of going on in this moment from engineers to drivers. Thanks for running us through that, Sam. The resumption of the race is coming 14 minutes past the hour.
We had a late safety car restart last year in the dry conditions. Hamilton led and Verstappen came through on the restart. He actually had to lift off the throttle because he was going to clear Hamilton before the race resumed at the start line. So can catch you out.
It's brightening up. We are ready to conclude this race. You've got to be aware, you can just see on the left-hand side of your picture there, the rivers running over the circuit on the entry to turn 2. It is a track where you do get quite a lot of water building up as well, 9 and 10. So that is why we're going to have the 2 laps behind the safety car. They will come off the lap total, and then we will get the shootout at the end to decide who wins this one. And in the past, they have just pushed the cars back, but they're releasing Sergio Perez, and they're sending him round. So in the past, they've just pushed them back into the order, but Sergio Perez has gone out there. Driver who clobbered the wall coming in for full wets, and then found, when he got to the end of the pit lane, there was a red light there, so those who need to change are out there, and slightly earlier than we thought, we've got cars back out onto the circuit.
Yeah, it looks like he was ready to be released a lot earlier, and it's a narrow pit lane, so maybe the McLaren had some difficulties getting Norris fired up. But all the cars now making their way out, and they'll presumably pick up the safety car.
The top 5, I think, are still in the pits. So these guys are going out, they're going to join the back of the field, are they, to effectively complete their lap that they had to do. And that's, yeah, you can see the top 5 are still sitting there. So this is a nice little recce lap, isn't it, for those guys?
Very useful. In the past, we've rearranged it, we've pushed them in the right order. Also, make a note of that river running across the track on the way to turn 8. That's going to be crucial if you're thinking about a move. This is down at turn 11. Here's George Russell. Everyone on the intermediate tyres, as mandated by race control.
Well, presumably the the race direction was hoping that no one would really notice this. Then they haven't told us they were about to do it.
So I think it's a
Don't mention
transponder
it.
thing. It's a transponder thing. So they have to, when there's a lap difference and you're going to do a restart, they have to try and neutralise it. So they complete the lap so that they've done the same distance as everyone else. So here we go now. Perez coming back in. Norris and everyone else that's not in the top 5 now will filter in behind. But they've got a little bit more tyre temperature, a little bit more brake temperature, unless we sit here for a while and that cools. And that's kind of quite a handy lap. But now the safety car is going to go, and Verstappen will lead the rest of them round. So that's tough on the likes of Lewis Hamilton.
We have had a 45-minute delay due to very heavy rain. The weather has now cleared, and the conclusion of the Dutch Grand Prix will be underway. We're going to have a couple of laps of reconnaissance behind the safety car, and then we will have a rolling start procedure.
And why I say that's tough on Hamilton is because he's 5th. So he is the car directly in the firing line of everyone else that is just done an extra lap. He'll now be 6th as Perez goes back into 3rd. Might not make a big difference depending on the speed of the safety car. Everyone has a couple of laps to try and acclimatise.
This bit will get edited out of the season review, so it won't be as confusing for those watching the entire season.
Yeah, it will just jump in with, and we're back underway. But Fernando Alonso chasing his first Grand Prix victory since 2013 in the Spanish Grand Prix. A decade of hurt for the driver who, how much is he prepared to risk? How close can he get? Max Verstappen, both of the top 2 chasing history.
And Alonso's been really good on the opening lap of the race. In the slippery conditions, he was charging through, wasn't he, on the slick tyres then, but he cleared. Who was it ahead at that point? It's such a long race. It was Russell and Albon. Russell and Albon. God, that feels a while ago that they were 3rd and 4th on the grid.
It certainly was.
Then he passed Norris and then pitted, and the race changed for so many of them.
Yeah, I think just coming back to what you were saying earlier, this rolling start procedure definitely takes pressure off Verstappen, not having to go through that standing start restart of this Grand Prix. So Fernando is going to get a face full of spray. Definitely quite away from having a dry line. I can imagine in the few laps that we have left in this Grand Prix that we will not see any pit action. Well, not going to imagine, we're just not going to see any pit action. This is just a pure sprint to the end.
This will be it, won't it? On the intermediates from here.
So maybe in 8 minutes there's some very light rain, but nothing serious.
The spray's going to kick up as well. It's already wisping as they pick up the speed here. Just wisps of spray a little bit more as they build up the speed. But when this is racing conditions again, then there's going to be quite a lot of spray. And you can see it lingers in the air for those further back in the field.
We are looking at the driver of Sergio Perez. Car number 11 wants to reclaim his 2nd place. Red Bull would love to celebrate a 1-2 as well. After a sizable delay, we are on our last lap of discovery of these conditions. The drivers will be trying to learn all that they can. There is the light rain in the distance, and it is lap 66 of 72. Lap 67 will see the green flag fly once again around this historic venue. Will it be Max Verstappen for 9 Grand Prix in a row? Will it be the first win in a decade for Fernando Alonso? We are going to wait, we are going to find out. Perez will want to reclaim P2, Sainz will want to come back at Gasly. Gasly will be looking for a first podium since 2021. After all the drama, after all the incidents, everything we've seen so far, it could yet completely change.
Red Bull still looking for the perfect season. 10 races to go. This is one of them, and they've won everything so far. Verstappen's looking to equal Vettel's win record of 9 in a row. This is the sort of thing that provides complications. Yes, he's at the front of the field, but it's going to be just a 5-lap restart with a very hungry Fernando Alonso just behind. These are the sort of complicated races that Verstappen and Red Bull will have to deal with.
Yeah, Verstappen there just having a little feel at the side of his helmet. What does he have there? He's got the connector. He's still there. He's got his hand up. It's almost like his hands has detached. Let's see if we can see the strap. But something was bothering him there, which, anyway, he's got his eye back on the game now. And he's having to work for this record-breaking attempt, isn't he, of or record equaling series of wins.
Nothing comes easy in Formula One, but this has been a really testing day. He drops the hammer. Max Verstappen takes us back to green flag racing conditions, and Fernando Alonso will try and stay with the Dutch driver out front. What a spectacle we have been treated to as the green flag flies once again at Zandvoort. It's Verstappen, then Alonso, then Perez into turn one. Alonso trying to fire up those intermediate tyres, quickly trying to give himself a chance. There's 0.6 of a second between the top two as they reach turn two.
I think that was as good a restart as Alonso could have hoped for in the conditions. So no pressure from behind as yet. Everyone else making their way around. Anyone taking that inside line for a pass?
Russell thinking about the move on Lando Norris. Fernando Alonso had a big twitch going into turn three. It cost him so much time through this series. And Russell just drove straight past Lando Norris there and up to 7th place.
Yeah, it was a really nice move then from George Russell, just the inside line on the exit, and that was a clean pass.
Bad news for Sergio Perez. He's being investigated for speeding in the pit lane. And how many times have we seen that penalised with a 5-second penalty? He's got Gasly directly behind. We're on board with Fernando Alonso, who has 32 wins in Formula One. 33 is just a few car lengths away.
This is race on. This really is. Alonso's initial reaction to Verstappen's restart, it wasn't superb, but he's quick through the corners and he came back to him, lost time at turn 3, he's back to him again and he's putting on some pressure.
Perez currently has 3.6, 3.8 seconds over Gasly. He'll need 5. He's got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Max Verstappen really being made to work. 5 laps to go in the Dutch Grand Prix.
I think that Max is just being a bit tentative, and of course Fernando gets the advantage, not only from what he can feel through his hands and through the seat of his pants, but the visual of the car in front is something you can play with for braking.
Russell's been off. Russell's at the back of the field.
Russell has dropped to the back of the pack and he says he's out.
Front wing is missing, I think.
We join him on board. The British driver who put a good move in comes into the pits and he says he's out of the race. So it's now Norris in 7th, Albon in 8th, then Piastri and Ocon. A reminder that Sergio Perez has that 5-second penalty, so he's pushing to try and get that gap up.
How has he picked that up? Presumably is that as he's gone through the pit lane? Surely if it was from the early part of the race, they could have dealt with that quite a while ago once we've been under red flag condition.
Yeah, it certainly told us.
So Alonso keeping it within 0.9 of a second. It means that Verstappen has to keep it clean and tidy all the way to the end. And watch that gap between Sergio Perez and Pierre Gasly. Gasly will be giving it everything to score his first Formula One podium since Azerbaijan in 2021. Now, with a lap of knowledge under his belt, Verstappen gets the gap out to 1 second. Alonso is going to chase him all the way home. The incident involving Norris and Russell has been noted for causing a collision.
Yeah, we didn't see that one. That's turn 11, the right into the left towards the end of the lap. This is going to be it then. So Norris has been passed by Russell. He's trying to come back through at turn 10. Russell did that great move on the exit of 3. Side by side into turn 11. There's a right-hander coming up.
And as we go into turn 11, there's the contact between the pair of them. And it was only minor, but it put Russell out.
Yeah, that's a nothing. That's just
racing.
Precisely.
So Russell saying that he was out, but I think he came into the pits and went out again. Here's Carlos Sainz.
4 laps to go. 4 laps to go.
There's radio.
Copy.
I've got a 7-time world champion directly behind me, says Carlos Sainz, and he is driving on his mirrors right now as the Mercedes looking good in these conditions.
Hamilton's having a really good race, 13th on the grid, and now he's putting pressure on Sainz for 5th place in the race, and the strategy didn't even go his way at the start either. He's been quick in all conditions.
Perez will be hoping they keep battling for a few laps, slowing each other down and giving him a bit more of the time to deal with that penalty.
He's already got the gap to these guys, in fact. Perez, 3 laps to go. He doesn't want Hamilton to be set loose and try and close that in again. But there is a big gap now. Sainz is not quick at the moment. 3.5 seconds back to Gasly, 5.5 back to Perez, and he's just punching Hamilton and then Norris with him as well. For Perez is whether he can put a gap to Pierre Gasly. Could be Gasly's first podium for Alpine. He's only 3 laps away from it if he can stay within 5 seconds of Perez.
What a tonic it would be for the French team that were on the rostrum in Monaco, but it's been tough since then on board, with Lewis Hamilton making his way through turn 6 now. We'll go into the right-hander of 7. You can see the confidence that he's got behind the wheel. A driver who has won so many races in conditions like this, and Sainz, who is no slouch in these conditions either, is having to work so much, but Hamilton is using more of the road in the wheel tracks.
Yeah, he's just trying to seize any opportunity, playing around with his lines.
Sainz has got no grip at all, has he? The Ferrari's missing some downforce. They're already struggling, and here comes Hamilton. It's a difficult one to look into turn 11, especially from behind. Trying to lunge it, it's not really a goer, but he's putting huge pressure on. Surely now, get through this next corner, turn 13, through the banking, and then he'll have a nice run into the first corner. We've seen overtakes there inside or outside so far in this race.
Out front, it is Verstappen, Alonso, and then this man who has caught Fernando Alonso, but doesn't have the gap he requires to stay on the podium over Pierre Gasly.
And that's the order out front. Out back, we've got Lawson now in the wheel tracks of his teammate Tsunoda. So this is actually the first time he's getting to see from the driver's position just, what does his more experienced teammate take out of that car?
Liam Lawson having a debut to remember. Lewis Hamilton will want at minimum a chance to get past Carlos Sainz, but 13th to 5th would be a good return on a day where it was very easy to catch a curb, catch a white line, find yourself out of the race. Hamilton had a great view of George Russell doing that very nearly, and Hamilton is nearly nudging Sainz through the corner of turn 9. By the time we get to 10, it's all about the momentum onto the back straight here, which in the dry, no chance. But Hamilton has much better grip. You're also watching on the left-hand side of your picture, Sergio Perez trying to hustle Alonso, and Verstappen has disappeared. He's on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, Verstappen's got this one in his pocket. Then 1 lap to go in 3.5 seconds. He can take his foot off the gas slightly to cement the final lap. Perez is going nowhere. He's just stuck behind Alonso. He's being backed in towards Pierre Gasly. Just 2 seconds between them. That's going to be Gasly with a sensible final lap. He's going to take the podium.
Well, this has been a Dutch Grand Prix to remember, and Lewis Hamilton is close to losing his front wing into turn 1. He is running out of corners to improve to 5th.
Yep, there was definite contact there. Will he try down into turn 3?
No chance right now, and then it is single file through the sweepers, and he will try and make the move before we get to the end. But it has been a superb day of motor racing action, and they're battling all the way to the final corners on the last lap after a rain intervention at the start and a rain intervention at the finish. We've seen so much overtaking today, but despite that, it is going to be Verstappen's day once again in Formula One history. Here is the home hero. You can hear the crowd cheering him home. And this is a moment of Formula One magic for Max Verstappen, who is going to claim another home victory, a 3rd in a row. Verstappen is the history maker in Holland. Verstappen crosses the line to win 9 Grand Prix in a row and tie the all-time record. Superb stuff to bring the crowd to their feet. Alonso is second for his return to the podium, his first since Canada. Perez crossed the line in 3rd, but it's Pierre Gasly who takes the checkered flag waved by Martin Garrix, and Gasly gets his first podium since 2021. Alonso, his 7th podium of the season, but 9 Grand Prix in a row has only been done once before until now. Sebastian Vettel has company. Max Verstappen ties the all-time record. What a Dutch Grand Prix to remember.
That really was something, wasn't it? It was a race with everything in it, but still, Max Verstappen reigned supreme in all conditions, even overcoming that early strategy, missing the first lap to pit, having to charge his way through the field. He got the undercut on his teammate, but I don't think really Perez could complain. Max was just in a different league today.
You've done it, mate. Fantastic job.
Yes. Wow. Didn't make it easy for us today, the weather, but
again, unbelievable, guys. Great way to come back after the break as well.
Well done, Max. That matches the best run ever of Sebastian. So 9 wins in a row. It's an amazing. So yeah, taking every moment of this in lap. I'm sure they're going to serenade you all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely remarkable. Whether you're a fan of Max Verstappen or not, you cannot deny his brilliance behind the wheel. This was one of the most challenging weekends for the drivers, I think, with all the variable weather conditions and qualifying and what we've seen in the race there as well. But as you said, Jolyon, in the end, he deals with it all.
He just always does at the moment. And it's one thing winning in the best car, and that's what he's doing. But it's everything that's thrown at him, with sometimes grid penalties, sometimes a poor pit stop occasionally, the Red Bull do. The weather that can turn races on its head, as we saw today with other, front row starter. Lando Norris was languishing outside of the points for a long time. And all of these things can happen, and yet still Max is winning.
Here's the driver of the day.
P2, well done. I think that's my favourite one. I passed his lap as well.
Yeah, I take this one. That's not the best one yet, but we will win one race soon. We are getting closer. Well done, guys.
They updated that car, and it was a rejuvenated Fernando Alonso, who is nodding his head. Fantastic stuff. The rest of the point scorers, Sainz held off Hamilton, who improved 7 places from his grid place to 6th position. Here's Gasly.
P3. Let's go! Let's go! Woo-hoo-hoo! Amazing, man. Amazing. What a race! What a race! Super, mate. It's an air drop, please.
Well, it's great to hear how much it means to him. You almost feel that you could drop that into someone winning a Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's only his 4th Formula One podium, so it means a lot to Gasly. There's Alonso to congratulate Verstappen on the history-making moment. 9 Grand Prix in a row, Dutch Grand Prix winner for the 3rd season in succession. Formula One, Formula Max. It has been superb once again, in the rain, in the sun, at home. The Orange Army got exactly what they wanted, and I tell you what, today they got a lot more action as well. Pierre Gasly's 4th career podium. They're all fairly box office races when he finds himself on the rostrum. And Alonso, an exhausted, happy hug with his mechanics.
Yeah, what a long race as well. The concentration levels the whole way through for all of them. Gasly drove superbly today. He started 12th, got the strategy right, ran with Zhou towards the sharp end in that early phase. But across at the end, I mean, his pace was really strong. It was matching Perez and Alonso, and was 3 seconds inside of that 5-second gap to Perez. He was running away from Sainz and Hamilton behind.
You see what it means to the team, the Alpine team. They've had a lot of change in management. That brings doubts, but there's nothing like a podium and a trophy to bring everyone together.
It's all about the results, and Gasly seemed very happy all the way through. Not as happy as this man, though. A lot of pressure at your home race. He has delivered it in style. Max Verstappen.
Have you seen I got on my back? Yes, boys.
Celebrating there. They are enjoying it. They're giving out the capes to the mechanics already. Fernando Alonso back on the podium in Formula One. Great run, his 7th of the season. Resurgent form for him, and he's 105th all time. All right, deep breath for us in the commentary box. Let's hear from the top 3. They are speaking in Parc Fermé to Guido van der Garde.
Pierre Gasly, P3, man, I think that must be satisfying, not? What a result for you and the team. The first podium for you together with Alpine.
All I want to say, let's go! Yes! Feeling so stoked, honestly. What a race, coming back from the summer break, and it hasn't been the easiest start of the year. Just trying to improve race by race, and yeah, it was good to get some time off, come back, and straight into it. We had a 3rd place in Spa in the sprint. It wasn't exactly as like a normal podium, and I'm super pleased for all the guys to get that P3.
When you heard Perez had a 5 seconds penalty, I guess you were pushing flat out, not the last few laps.
Yeah, I was pretty upset. I got a 5-second penalty earlier in the race, and I was like, okay, no, it's 1-1. And then, yeah, obviously I tried to push as hard as I could to stay within 5 seconds and managed to do it. So it was a very long race, very challenging from start to finish, and it was greatly executed from all the guys.
Perfect. Enjoy it, man. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks.
Fernando, hear it? Yeah. Fernando. Oh. Fernando, P2. Why is it always you love probably all those tricky conditions? On the beginning, on the end, it looks like in the rain, half wet. This is really your thing, huh?
Yeah, it was a very intense race. Obviously, at the beginning with the wet conditions, we were very fast. And we stopped maybe 1 lap too late, but the same as the leaders. And yeah, the car was flying today. Very competitive, very easy to drive. So in these conditions, you need a car that you can trust. And I did trust the car a lot today. So I did enjoy. Thanks to all the fans. The energy that we live here in Zandvoort is very unique. And yeah, 2 years ago when this race came, I thought I will never experience maybe the Zandvoort podium because I was not in a position to think about that. And today is going to be very special to share the podium with Max and with Pierre now.
Good to hear. Was it hard for you? I mean, it's nice to hear. Was it hard for you? Because there's like a party going on. You have to wait for the red flag, then you have to jump back in the car. You have to concentrate. But the crowd was going mad. I guess it must be hard to get back in the zone, not?
Yeah, it is one of those races that is difficult, as you said, to concentrate, to stay focused for such a long period of time. But yeah, as I said, I think this is a very special racetrack with all the fans and the energy going on. So you feel always very focused. And yeah, happy for Max. Congratulations to everyone. I did think about trying a move in the last restart. But then I thought maybe I cannot exit the circuit, so I stay calm in second.
Oh, good to hear. Well, enjoy, man. Enjoy. Max Verstappen for the 3rd time in a row, a winner of the Heineken Dutch Grand Prix. This must feel amazing, not?
Incredible. And also today, they didn't make it easy for us, I think, with the weather to make all the time the right calls. But yeah, incredibly proud. I mean, I already had goosebumps when they were playing the national anthem before the start. And you know, even with all the bad weather, the rain, the fans were still going at it. So an incredible atmosphere.
He also now equalized Sebastian Vettel with 9 wins in a row. I think that's mega spectacular. Are you up for the 10th one next week?
I'll think about it next week. I'm first going to enjoy this weekend. You know, it's always tough. You know, the pressure is on to perform, and very happy, of course, to win here.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you stayed very cool, and this is what we've seen already last few races as well. Do you want to also say something in a Dutch to all the fans here? I think they have been amazing all weekend, especially in the rain.
Ja, ongelooflijk natuurlijk. De atmosfeer natuurlijk de hele dag. Goed weer, slecht weer. Zag dan uit dat jullie altijd een feest hadden. Dus ja, super mooi om te zien. En heel trots natuurlijk om hier weer te kunnen winnen. En heel mooi dat jullie er allemaal weer bij waren.
Congratulations. Gefeliciteerd, man. Top.
Well, thank you to Guido van der Garde, and a delighted and semi-exhausted top 3 after a race where they had to show all of their considerable talent. What a way to tie the all-time win record of consecutive victories for Max Verstappen, who is being squirreled to the pit lane at the back there of the podium, and this is going to be a very happy podium. All the Dutch fans, they had to get wet all the way through the weekend. We thought it'd be this, man, but the circumstances were something else. There's the moment for 9 in a row for just the 2nd time in the championship's history.
Yeah, incredible once again. The poncho sales will be up this year.
Yeah.
Good for local business, and actually the crowd, whilst they have had to endure some tricky conditions, they've seen some serious racing action. What a Grand Prix. So unpredictable the whole way through. Seeing the drivers on the limit of their skills, using all the senses in tricky conditions, then picking it up as the track dries out.
It's debrief time, it's podcast time. Let's hand you over to the top three.
Did you get, so you boxed lap 1 or lap 2?
No, lap 2. Lap 2.
How was that first lap?
Slippery, but Fernando was fast in that rain lap.
Yeah?
Yeah. He was almost passing me.
How did you start? Call of Duty?
Oh.
I don't know. What is that?
What?
The movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I had a very good grip on those ones.
As soon as I touched that paint,
You have no grip.
Ferrari was struggling so much.
I think Charles had some damage.
Yeah.
In the car. He went off in front of me in 10-11. And I think he damaged something because he was too slow.
Yeah, they retired him after. Where did you pass Carlos? 10-1? 10-1. 10-1.
I enjoyed that addition. Max joined today by Fernando Alonso and Pierre Gasly, and we were just saying whilst it was going on, he knows everyone's race.
What happened to Charles? When was Fernando racing with Charles in that one? He started behind him. Where was he? At turn 11. Hey, he's aware of everything in the cockpit, isn't he? I like these races where you end up with a top three, and Max, look, is his show, the cool down room. He's there every time. But he must look around and be like, how have you guys got here?
It very much is changing all the way through. The contenders change, the victor doesn't. That's the story. The most entertaining Grand Prix of the year welcomes Pierre Gasly thanks to the pit lane speeding penalty for Sergio Perez. Just a 4th Formula One podium in his career, and he's first for his French team of Alpine. That will mean a lot. Fernando Alonso is used to this feeling. It is another podium for him. He's 105th and he's 7th for the season. But we're running out of the superlatives for this driver. Max Verstappen, 9 in a row in the Grand Prix format to tie the all-time record, and he will hear his national anthem.
Den vader land getrouwe blijf ik tot in den dood. Een prins van Oranje ben ik vrij onvervreemd. Den
Well done to Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing. Max Verstappen taking win number 46 in Formula One, and surely one of his more memorable ones. Great stuff. That's the trophy that ties Red Bull's other world champion. Helmut Marko picked them both. And Adrian Newey has designed some mighty cars. Here's another one for Christian Horner's trophy collection. Okay, not that one, never mind, let's give it another go. Ah, gold medal first. Oh, that's a wonderful moment. That's a wonderful moment. The father of Delano Van Toff, who we sadly lost earlier in the season. An accident in Spa-Francorchamps, presenting the gold medal to our winner, Max Verstappen. Here is the Constructors' Trophy being presented to Red Bull once more. It's been a year of only 2 winners. We've had 9 drivers on the podium, but Red Bull are still dreaming of the perfect season. 9 races to go. Something we've never seen. That wouldn't be the tyre record. That would be unprecedented in Formula One World Championship history. Fernando Alonso celebrating in style after a short breakaway. His first podium since June. If you consider that he only had a couple in 9 years, it wasn't that long to wait compared to before. For the first time with Alpine, Pierre Gasly is on the rostrum, 4th time in his Formula One career, and those were great laps at the end. He had a good pass on Carlos Sainz as well. How they have earned the bollicini that they are spraying. It's been wet enough out there today, at the start, at the finish. Anything you can come up with, any scenario, however odd, Max Verstappen has an answer to it, and at his home race, he's topped the pile once again. Well, what a Dutch Grand Prix. Let's look at the Drivers' Championship to see how that affects things. Max Verstappen on 339 points, then it's Perez. Fernando Alonso extends his advantage over Lewis Hamilton in the battle for 3rd. Carlos Sainz moves up to 5th position. The top 10 is rounded out by Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, and Pierre Gasly with his best result of the season today. Then it's Esteban Ocon in 11th, Oscar Piastri in 12th, then it's Albon with another score, Hulkenberg, Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Yuki Tsunoda and Kevin Magnussen, the point scorers. The rest on the board now include Liam Lawson, who made a fine debut but was outside the points. Red Bull lead the Constructors' Championship, Mercedes in 2nd, but with Aston Martin closing in. Then it's Ferrari in 4th ahead of McLaren, a good day for Alpine in 6th, Williams in 7th, and the order completed by Haas, Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri, still 10th.
Well, there's not much more the racing gods could have done to try and scupper Max Verstappen's assault on the 2023 calendar. They failed, he won. After a quick break, we'll unpick the madness that bookended a fantastic Grand Prix, plus Pierre Gasly and Christian Horner's smiles will fill your screen. Don't go anywhere.